Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, ladies. How you doing? Thank you for joining us. How you doing? Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. The beginning and the end. He will accomplish it. He will accomplish it. He's the Alpha and Omega. You've got 6 minutes to share the video and to tag your friends. Tell them it is time for Mom's Summit. He's the Alpha, Omega, the beginning and the end. Thank you for joining us. Please tell your friends and call them out. the beginning and the end. Good evening. Thank you for joining. Jesus said, why shall I say no? I'm not Good evening. Thank you all for joining. Are your friends here? Are your friends joining us? Thank you for joining. We're live on YouTube and Facebook only. Three minutes and we will start. Thank you for joining. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for joining. Bibles below. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for tagging your friends. Good evening. Thank you for joining. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining promptly. It is now 10 minutes past 7, and we've got all our speakers in the house. I am so grateful for the past 2 sessions that we've had. We started off yesterday evening. It was absolutely brilliant. We had a session with Tony Arowolo. We had a session with Raising Boys, Sister Tony Okiki, Olu, and we had Omolade yesterday talking to us about how to raise our teenagers or how to support our teenagers. So this evening, we've got quite a lot to go through. I already warned you earlier on today that I think we may be here a bit later than we were last night, but it will be worthwhile. So tonight, we'll be talking about discipline, boundaries. We'll be talking about raising girls. We'll be talking about motherhood, God's way, and then structures for your children. As I said, I've got all the speakers in house. I'm going to introduce them and then I'll bring them all at the same time. And at the end of this session tomorrow, I will be sharing the data, the information for all the speakers because I will not be reading out the bios one after the other this evening. So first, I'm going to bring on board is Tony Arowolo. You all know Tony, our TPJ motherhood lead. This is the woman that God has committed motherhood on thy precious jewels into our able hands. And I really want to thank God for her. Tony is soft spoken, she's focused, she's an high achiever, she's an author, and she's just as passionate about TPJ as most of the leaders. And she has distinguished herself over the years. I'm so grateful to have her serving with me on thy precious jewels. So next, I'm going to bring Dr. Vivian Okoye. You all know Vivian. I think the last time we had Vivian here, I think it was Wife Summit. And a lot of us had to go home and ask God for forgiveness for shouting on our children. I, what can we do? We glide like that. We know. And then I'm going to bring Joy Akinwumi, who you have met when we had a mom session quite a while ago. I think they may have forgotten that face now, but she talks about structures and she's a woman that is so dedicated to what God has committed into her hands and she's doing amazing things with that. And then I've got Irene Bagwell. Irene is new to the TPJ platform. You're meeting her for the first time, but this is not the first time she's doing what she's doing. She is an advocate for the girl child. So she'll be talking to us about raising girls this evening. So we are all ready. The house is full. And the ladies will be speaking one by one. At some point, I'll bring everybody on board just to get the full perspective. But most of the time, we will just focus on the person that is addressing us part time. So tonight, we're going to start with Vivian. Dr. Okoye. So the first question for you, Dr. Okoye, is how do I support my 2-year-old child who is having temper tantrums? What should I do? Vivian, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much for having me. Um, I would approach that question by asking another question or by looking at a different way of thinking about, temper tantrums, right? So when we talk about temper tantrums as a parent, what you want to ask is, why is my child throwing a tantrum, right? Because we're talking about a 2-year-old here. Temper tantrum is quite common within that age group for toddlers, right? It's their way of expressing their frustration. So the question as a parent you want to ask before you launch into action, before you launch into problem solving is, why is my child throwing a temper tantrum? A 2-year-old doesn't have the vocabulary to communicate how they feel. They don't have the full understanding of their emotions. So a 2-year-old might be frustrated by something happening. They can't come to you to say, Mommy, this is what is frustrating me. A 2-year-old might be hungry. They can't come to you to say, Mommy, I'm hungry. They can't quite articulate that. A 2-year-old might be sleepy and tired. They can't communicate that. A 2-year-old might have had a difficult day in school, right? So we send them to, if you're in Nigeria, you can send your child to a crèche and they're being, forced to eat. Other children are bumping into them. That's having a really difficult day in school. And then they come back. They are tired. They want your attention. And probably you're trying to cook, you're trying to do other things. you're not able to give them the attention they need, they get frustrated and they start throwing tantrums just to get your attention because they don't have the vocabulary to tell you, Mommy, I really need you to hug me. I've had a difficult day in school. So, one thing I want us to understand is that the way you look at the behavior would determine how you approach the behavior. So your 2 year old didn't just sit down to say, I'm gonna have a tantrum. They didn't just sit down to say, I'm gonna make my mom's life difficult today by throwing tantrum randomly. Some 2 year olds might even have sensory challenges where if they are in a noisy place, they are overwhelmed by that noise, and the only way they can communicate that is by crying, by throwing tantrums, right? So um, don't think about the behavior or don't look at the behavior as just what your child is expressing. What your child is expressing is what is on the surface. That's what they're showing you. But that behavior is a communication. So I want you to, meet every of your child's behavior as a feedback, as a communication, as, telling yourself that my child is trying to tell me something. And that is really what most behaviors for children, even beyond the toddler years, in the pre-teens years and in the teenage years, every behavior is trying to communicate something. And for you to support your child effectively, you would really want to ask yourself, what is this behavior trying to tell me? What is going on here? And if you're able to really be calm, because you need to calm yourself, don't just launch into wanting to shut your child up, or don't come with a fixed mindset around children's behavior, because we have all these concepts and perceptions around 2 year old where we're calling them terrible tools. Where you're having conversations and people are saying, oh, these children, they know what they're doing, they just want to make your life difficult, children can be funny. When you have those conversations and those mindsets and perceptions seep into your subconscious, you're likely to be agitated, you're likely to be defensive when your child is behaving in a way that you don't appreciate, in this case tantrums, right? And essentially that tantrum is really just communication, is really just your child trying to tell you something. So I would say the way to look at it is to accept and tell yourself that tantrums are actually a 2 year old's way of communicating their frustration, their tiredness, their sleepiness, or something that they're not able to verbalize. So, how do you support? Your support is to really brainstorm and say, what is my child trying to communicate to me here? And with the focus of understanding what it is and then teaching your child how to use their words when you finally figure it out, right? Both provide the calm in the chaos, be the calm in that situation, understand what your child is trying to communicate, and then try to teach them the words, because that's how you then build them up to communicate better next time instead of using a tantrum to communicate.
Hmm.
I hope that
Thank you
answered the
so much,
question.
Vivian. It did answer the question. The child is trying to pass a message across. I absolutely agree with this. Don't label these terrible twos. It never happened to me. My children never had a terrible two. I don't
Mhm,
know why, but I think it's probably just because uh, we never had a terrible two. There was no
mhm,
tantrum. It never
yeah,
happened in my household. I'm sure that there may be people here who would agree, and some people have had it a bit different. If your
mhm,
children were throwing tantrums and whatever, it doesn't make you a bad mom. It just
mhm.
means that there's something that was missing, and hopefully you're learning and you know how to rectify that now. So the next question will be for Tony Arowolo. I'm going to bring Tony on stage right now. So Tony, one of the things we're dealing with, as we talked this morning, was dropping the little ones off in school really early in life. And Dr. Alugo and I were talking about, the babies going to school at age two. We know that for some mothers, that is, there's no way they can go around that. They've got to go to work, even though I still have my views about that. And I think I should probably share my view now, because I think some people may care about my view. Not everyone will care about my view, but let me tell you what we did. When we had children that young, the decision was made between my husband and I that one of us had to stop working. It was because we decided that this crucial time in our children's lives, we need to be at home, we need to be available, we need to be around. And not only that, it so happens that depending on what you earn, I mean, if you earn several millions, that is absolutely fine. It depends on what you earn. If you calculate your money properly, some of us, the salary that you're going to earn will be given to the childminder. So, what on earth is it that you're trying to do then? You're trying to make money, and the money goes to the childminder, and you don't get to see your child. You don't get to stay with them during those crucial time in life. Somebody will look at me and say, mobilize, just sit down there and be talking rubbish. Say, you don't even know what is happening here. That is fine. It's your child. Okay? It's your child. That child will be in your house in that state for a short period of time and then they will go. I want to tell you today, if you're a working mom and you're having to go out, don't feel guilty. Okay? But try the best that you can do. If you are a stay at home mom, still do what you need to do. The fact that you're staying at home does not mean that you're giving the child attention. Going by what we discussed this morning, you'll be talking to your friend on the phone, you'll be doing everything. The child is still there, and all they're doing is sitting in front of the TV. So you can actually not be at work and yet not be there in that child's life. So whatever you choose is entirely your choice. It's your child we're talking about. And in 15 years' time, the child will still be yours, still be probably in your home. So make a good choice. So for those who are now ready to send their children to the childminder or to nursery school, Tony is now going to tell us how to look for and what to search for and what to consider when you're trying to get a good childminder. Thank you so much, Tony.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Um, Different people, different stories. I remember when I had to put my baby in the crèche. I She was less than 3 months, and my husband and I were living in different cities. I was working, and I remember going to look for a crèche, and I went with a family friend, and we scouted several, and we got to the place where I eventually placed her. And both of us, felt at peace. It was like, this is it. But the money they were calling, I was like, wow. And something he said to me was, look, you want to be at work and have a rest of mind that your daughter is safe, nothing is going to happen to her. Some of the places we had gone to, as soon as you open the doors, the smell of urine, the smell of, when people are trying to cover smells, deodorant and not deodorant, sorry, air freshener, masked the smell of, urine. And it was just, ah, and for me, I kept, because I was like, I want a place, first of all, that was close to my office, convenient for me. I wanted a place that was safe. I wanted the staff, to be able to go in and know that the people who were taking care of her were people I could entrust my child with. This was, my first, I was a new mom. So even as I've said, those are the kind of things you look out for. First of all, ease, proximity to where you are. You don't want somewhere that is too far away, that when the child is hungry you can't get there on time, or when there's traffic. For me, this was perfect because I was still breastfeeding. She was exclusively breastfed, so I could actually dash down from my office to feed her, to express and hand it over. The other thing as well was the staff were friendly. There's the culture of customer service is very is gaining ground in Nigeria, but we still have a long way to go. But you go to places where it's almost like you are paying them, but they are doing you a favor. No, you want a place where they would appreciate the fact that you're bringing your child there. They are not they are not they are not treating you as if your child is a product or a commodity. They see that child as a unique individual. They are partnering with you to help you raise that child. So yeah, we're talking of new moms and things, but even when you're talking of a school as well, you want to go to a place where you sense or you can see that the people who are going to take care of your children have shared values. That's really important. One of the things I had also noted was that for a lot of people, your minders usually are people So they're relatives or a mother-in-law or a mother, or someone who's volunteered to say, look, I can take care of your child, and you're really comfortable with that. But there are times as well when, even though such people are close to you, you are not comfortable, leaving your child there for whatever reason, and it's important for you to make peace with whatever decision you come, you come to. Because, for instance, there might be people who, yes, they are close as per blood, but their values are not the same as yours, and you really don't want your children, being raised or, being brought up in that kind of atmosphere. And this is where you need to put on your courage hats. There are a lot of mothers that are unable to say no. Even, family members will say, she's even doing you a favor. In fact, okay, go and drop your child in the crèche and be spending money. Sometimes it might be better to spend money and get what you want than, bow to pressure. A lot of people are not able to stand up for themselves and say, this is what I want for my child. And it's important that you start speaking up for your children early. So in terms of, the environment, you want a place that is safe. One of the things that the government, you know in so I'm speaking about Nigeria now, but one of the things that needs to be in place, and I know that they do for primary schools, private schools and all that, I don't know about crèches, but there are certain standards. Do you have are there fire extinguishers? Are there entrances and exits at different points? Do you have an appropriate number of personnel for children? So you don't want 50 children in a room with only one person. That person cannot have oversight over the child. So first of all, of course, you go and visit, you go and assess, you ask questions. You want to know who the people are. You want to know, what kind of health checks have been done on them. You want to know their background. Ask questions. And that's where, for instance, you will find where people are just out to make money, as opposed to people are, in it for the good of your child. You want to look at the faces of where I eventually dropped my daughters. They were smiling, they were happy. You don't want a place where the staff have not been paid for the last 3 months, even though the first thing they do is take fees from you. Drop in unexpectedly. All the places I went to, I didn't call ahead. I just went in and I said, I'm here to drop my child. So firsthand, there was no time for them to clean up and clear up. For schools, as the child grows, one of the things you want to look at is the curriculum. And that's something that a lot of us, especially in Nigeria, are so passionate about. You want, British curriculum, American curriculum. At the end of the day, the important thing is the child learning. And for instance, one thing I want to mention, one of the last things I want to mention, is the fact that you need to understand what the curriculum entails. A lot of people hear Montessori, for instance, and complain, oh, my child is 5 and is not reading. The Montessori method is really different from, the other types of, didactic teaching methods. So you need to understand the curriculum. You need to understand it's not a thing that you just go and drop your child in school and, oh, this is curriculum, but even you are not aware. Go through the curriculum yourself, ensure that, okay, this is what will be appropriate for my child. And then patience. A lot of people, I see people, from one school to another. So I'm talking of after crèche now, the child is in either primary school, but every term they are changing schools. You want to be patient. You want to give, time for that child to be established, because like Dr. Okoye said, every child, you think of it, you go to work and you're in an environment that doesn't suit you. When you come home, you are irritated, you are cranky, you are tired. Your children you want them to go to places where you put them in, and when you are picking them up at the end of the day, they've had a good day. They're emotionally balanced. They haven't been shouted on, they haven't been spanked, they haven't been, pinched by adults. You want them to come home and they're happy. So that's another way, you would sense that your child is in a good place. What's their emotional state when you pick them up? I think I'll end there. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Tony. I like that, pinched by adults, because expect children to pinch your children, but pinched by adults we don't want. Thank you. I think that is amazing. Now that you said about going to work, when your baby was 3 months old, I went back to work when mine was a few weeks old, and I was working in a neonatal unit at the time. So we made a decision that my husband should stay home and take care of the children. And I went back to work, and I worked in a neonatal unit, which was about 3 hours away from my house. And so I used to go sit with the mothers of the babies. We'll just sit in the breastfeeding room, and I'll express, they will express, sit down there. Can imagine Dr. Jeffries with all the mothers who had the babies that I was just intubating a few minutes ago. But that was my life, and that was the choice that I made. Well, as I said earlier on, it's your child. In 17, 18 years' time, you will be with that child. So when you see my daughter now, she doesn't look like I ran away from home at that time, but I did run. But I ran for a good cause. Thank you so much, Tui. Now we're gonna have Joy come on right now. Let me just bring Joy on, and then Tui can. Hello, Joy. How you doing?
I'm very well, Mama Mabi. Good evening. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us once again. We haven't seen you for a while, but I know that you're doing well because I'm watching your every move. We thank
I
God
know.
for you.
Thank you, Ma.
We thank God for you, and we're so glad that you're joining us today. So, the
Yes, ma.
first question I've got for you, for most of us, structure does not come to us naturally.
Yeah.
At what age should we begin to teach our children about routine?
Hmm. I think routine is effective when children can understand and talk, especially when they need to actively participate in that activity, like go to bed, do your homework, etc. So you're requiring some action from them there. So routine will be effective when they can understand what you're saying. Is different from when they'll say, when the baby goes to sleep, you go to sleep. That's benefiting you, but this routine that I hope we're talking about here is the routine that benefits both the child and yourself for well-being, the well-being of the child, the well-being of the parent, and some structure in the home. So when they're babies and you're just starting to form those routine around sleep and lunch, is completely different. But when you need them to participate in the activity and you require that action from them, it's best done when there's already some form of communication between the children. So maybe an 18-month-old, as they're starting to form their words, and they know bedtime, a 2-year old, and then you start to put them to bed. They know that you pray, you read the Bible, you turn off the lights, and that happens, consistently. They know it's bedtime, when it's time for to brush their teeth before they have their bath, or brush their teeth before they go to bed. They understand you. So I think routines are most effective when your children can understand what you're saying, they can speak, and and especially when you require them to participate, in that activity. And it is really helpful for us as parents to have routines. As I said before, it's not just for the well-being of the child. Our lives comprise of so many things, and if we don't have routine in that, we are run around like headless chickens. Nothing seems to be working. A simple routine is get up from your bed, you lay your bed, you know, in the morning, and you do that consistently. Or that if you don't spend time to pray in the morning before the whole house is up, you're running around, everything just seems to be topsy turvy before 8 o'clock in the morning. So those routines are really beneficial for everyone. The child is calmer, um, and there is a very less chaotic atmosphere in the house where you have routines. So I think they're very beneficial for everyone.
Hmm. A lot of us are already looking at our lives just from that 1 minute. Do you have structure? Do you have structure? Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the structures that we have is you wake up in the morning, you check your phone, see Instagram, Facebook, who sent you message in the night, and then decide to check one reel about somebody, and then 5 hours later, you are still
You're still
watching
there.
reels
Yes.
on Instagram.
The streets of Instagram or something else. So yeah.
Isn't that funny? So yes, even as adults, you need structure,
Yeah.
and it does help.
It
And
does.
this is what I found out. When you put something in place, the children will follow it.
Absolutely, ma.
It reminds me when it was only my son, his bedtime was 7 p.m. And a lot of families used to frown at this at that time. In fact, somebody said to me that our house was an army barrack, which was absolutely fine. They probably thought that that would be an insult, but to
Mm.
me, it was a compliment.
Yeah,
Okay. So that was the life we lived. And the agreement was that when it was 7 p.m., he would go to bed.
yeah,
Whether he fell asleep or not, no, he's in his bedroom.
yeah.
And that 7 p.m. is the time that I now sit down with my husband. That
Yes.
is when those days I used to drink schlaw and all those funny things. That is when we bring the schlaw out, we bring the peanuts out, we now sit down and say, eh, so this was what Sister Toya Arowoloti, this was what Dr. Victor. That is when the gossip between couple and everything that we did as a couple,
Happened.
that was when it started, that was when it happened.
Yeah,
And then so
absolutely.
when my daughter came along, some years later, we did not even have to discuss this because she already met an example that was working. We never
Established.
said to her, your bedtime, she just went to bed
Yeah,
at that time. And when it was time for her brother to upgrade and move to 8 p.m., we did a celebration. Hello, girl. You're now the only one who needs to remain, going
7
to bed at
p.m.
7 o'clock. Your brother is older. He's now approaching teenage years. He needs to move up to 8 o'clock. And that was how it went.
Yeah.
What that does is gives the children a sense that you know what you are doing.
Mm, absolutely, ma.
It earns the children's respect. They start to trust what you tell them, your judgment and your decision, because you appear to know what you're doing
Mm,
when there is order. Thank you
yeah.
so much, Joy. Thank
Yes,
you
ma.
for that. So our next question is for Irene, who I'm going to bring onto the screen now. So Irene, good evening. Where is she? Is she here? Irene, are you there? Okay, you are muted. I've just unmuted you. Okay, can you mute yourself? How you
Okay,
doing?
ma'am. I'm very well, ma'am. Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. So, very first question for Irene this evening. What are the common pitfalls that we experience in raising girls, and how can we manage them?
So, thank you so much, ma'am. It's an honor to be on the TPJ platform today. So, what are the common pitfalls for girls? I'd like to start with thinking that the first pitfall that I have observed over the time is raising girls without a sense of their own identity. So, when girls are born, the priority is for us mothers, for example, we want them to look pretty. There's a lot of emphasis on beauty
Hmm. Okay, I think we've lost Irene there. I will bring her back when she lets me know that she's back.
Okay, ma'am, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Whoa, it's been smooth since we started. Why is it tripping now? So I think the very first pitfall is that many girls are being raised without a sense of their own personal identity. So for everyone that is raising girls, in fact, one of the things you pick when you're interacting with mothers is we love beautiful dresses, colorful, dresses, nice hairpins. So the girl is treated as a doll. It's like, I have to dress you up. You have to look pretty. And we usually don't realize that a girl can look pretty, but if she doesn't have a sense of identity of who she is, we're going to have a problem long term. And this is a problem she's going to take along the way all through life. And so when I talk about when I talk about identity, I'm talking about self awareness, I'm talking about self acceptance, I'm talking about self respect, I'm talking about honor for self. So you find a girl. So while I was raising my two daughters, I would notice that if we wanted to go somewhere, there was a sense of saying, wear this, you look beautiful in it. So whether the child girl is comfortable or not, because the girl child is to be dressed up, we would now ask the girl, do you feel comfortable in that? What is your own opinion about that? And so for me, that's the first step. We're raising girls who don't have identity, their own personal identity. They know what the billboards want, they know what the fashion labels want, they know what their mothers want, but what about me? And when a person is not familiar with their own voice and they step out there into the world, there's going to be a problem. So, how do we address that pitfall? From when our daughters are young, let's start asking them about their needs. And as parents, let's not impose an idea on who we think our children are. And that applies for even boys. Let's have an openness, a curiosity to unravel this gift that God has put in my life. How do I unpack this? I have two daughters. My first daughter loves history and loves science and loves theater. And that's a wonder to me. When I was growing up, I didn't know this kind of combinations could mix. And I'm getting to know her. I must show interest in who she is so that she too can pay attention to who she is. I have seen that to work for me and my girls. My two daughters are different people, not just to me, they are innately aware of how different they are from each other. And just a few days ago, we're talking about sibling rivalry. And I told them that research says that when parents have a favorite, it leads to sibling rivalry. And my girls, as we were just brainstorming, and they said, well, we think ours is personality difference. I'm like this, and she's like this, and that's the difference. And so for me, that's how we deal with it. We get our children, we pay attention to our children before we start to impose our ideas on them. The second pitfall is that many girls are not equipped for the different seasons and phases for their lives. So, for example, there are challenges about being a girl, and those challenges apply in different layers. There's a time when the challenge is sexual abuse. So, for example, I don't know how many parents know that when girls get to around the age of 6 to 8, that's actually the very first time they start to doubt themselves. They start to doubt whether they're beautiful. They start to doubt whether they're good enough at the age of 6. But many times interventions start to happen. We start to notice them when they're 14 and 15, and sometimes when they're in university. But it's around age 6 that girls start to make comparison. My hair is not as thick as hers. My hair is not as long as hers. So the girls are going through different phases, and we are not equipping them. There are times that they're exposed to certain kinds of risk. They're exposed to risk of sexual abuse. They're exposed to risk of pressure from friends. They are exposed to risk of they have this anxiety around the time that they're going through puberty, where they start to feel like everyone in my class is saying their period, why am I not? This person is growing boobs, why am I not? They start to have those kind of inner dialogues. The average parent sometimes is not even aware that there are inner dialogues going through the ears of our kids. And so how do we deal with that? Conversations, relationship. And I'm talking about the kind of conversations that is not imposing. Why would you feel that way? Well, if your child is feeling something, then that thing is legitimate. Let's deal with wherever it's coming from and be able to deal with it. But also let's expose girls to upskilling opportunities that prepare them for different phases and stages for their lives. The final thing I want to talk about is something that I draw inspiration from Psalms chapter 144, verse 12, that says that the B part says, your daughters are a cornerstone polished after the similitude of a palace. While growing up in Africa, the average parent just sees their daughter as someone who is going to get married. So wash your clothes so that a man can marry you. She can't wash plate. Is this how you're going to do in your house? Everything is all about marriage and boys, husbands. And then when we wake up and say, why is she sitting with somebody that is beating her? Well, you didn't tell her that her opinion counted. You didn't teach her that there was good treatment. You just tell her that no matter how successful she is, if she's not married, she's nothing. So you've made boys the goalpost of her existence. And when I look in scripture, girls have purpose, girls have assignment, and so we need to start thinking about girls outside of the role that they play. I'll end shortly by sharing an experience I had 3 years ago in one of the boot camps I held. I had a group of girls aged 15 to 17, and I told them to do a dream, a vision thing where they should tell me what their homes as university students look like. Like when you're done with secondary school, the space between university and marriage, I want to see what your home looks like. And without exaggerating, there was no girl in that room that ever thought about it. Their subconscious mind says, I finish school, I marry. They don't realize that you're a person before that transition. And it was heartbreaking to me to see that the socialization has been so consistent across all financial circles that we don't realize that our girls are waking up thinking they're nothing until they're married. And so, like I would usually say, um, submission has a place, and submission is not supposed to be in the master class of teenagers and single people just yet. At that phase of their life, the equipping they need to have is who is deserving for me to follow. who has the qualities for leadership for me to follow. But we don't teach them that. Then when they come with broken men, we now tell them, why can't you? Why can't you? So look at the trajectory. She doesn't have a sense of identity. She's not skilled for different phases for her life. And she's not even aware that she has a purpose outside of marriage. So when you raise someone like that, what kind of relationships are they going to end up with? So it's really something worth thinking about and just reflecting about. So that's it for me, man.
Thank you so much, Irene. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Some years ago, I had a session on that precious jewels. It was called Frank Talk with Omobi. And on that session, I explained to the women who were listening, my daughter and I don't talk about anything she's going to do for a husband.
Hmm.
And it is, and people were looking at me like I was weird. I said, why do we have to talk about what is husband's house? I mean,
Exactly.
what is husband's house? I don't understand. Maybe because I'm married to the person I'm married to. In fact, if I have never had the opportunity to call the kitchen my kitchen, it's never happened. And if I mistake, I say it. He first look at me like, oh, all right, okay. So I mean, you purchased that part of the house and it belongs to you. And that is the extent to which we see our family the way it is. My
Yes.
son cooks. I mean, he does. He's very conscious of how he looks and everything. He weighs his food. He cooks. He does his shopping for the whatever. He lives in my house, but he's so fussy about what he eats. As in, he needs to eat this amount of protein. That he's in the kitchen. I'm like, can you please finish? Because I need to come and cook. That is the kind of boy I'm raising.
Yes.
And when we're talking, there was a day I said to him, I said, well, if you're ever gonna end up with somebody from England, how are we gonna manage your egusi soup desire and whatever? And he's like, well, they can learn it, and if they don't want to learn, that's fine. I know how to make egusi soup, and that's all that matters. And that is the understanding that my children are growing
Yes.
up with.
Growing up with,
And
yes.
life is not about there's somebody who is going to come. And
Mm-mm.
as you said, Irene, this is the reason why people are dying in husband's
Yes.
house. Because
Yes.
life has always been about husband's house. We'll come
Yes.
back later and talk about that. I got your message anyway.
Thank you,
So
ma'am.
let's bring back Dr. Okoye to come and talk to us. Let's bring Dr. Okoye back. Dr. Okoye, thank you. Now we need to talk about something very important, lying in children, telling lies. Is it a spiritual problem or a carnal problem? And how do you manage it when you have a child who is telling lies? Whose fault is it? The devil, their ancestors, or the parents? Who has the diagnosis?
So, lying is a learned behavior, right? So, lying is a learned behavior, and it's again, like I said, when you're asking the right questions, you get the right answers. Again, what you want to ask is, where is it coming from, right? Children were not born with a script of, they didn't come with a manual of how to behave. Whatever we see in our children is something we put in them, something we allowed someone else to put in them, or something that we have not addressed. So for example, it can be a behavior you taught your child. It can be a behavior they learned by the access that you have given to things around them. It can be media, it can be other people, it can be people that they have had access to. So when comes to addressing lying, you want to ask yourself, where did this come from, right? And there are many reasons why children actually lie. So it could be that your child is afraid of you. So when a child has told the truth before and they got punished for it, or they felt pain for saying the truth. So a child can do something or something can happen and a child owns up to what has happened, and then you made them feel worse than, because for a child who comes to say the truth, or who has made a mistake and owns up to that mistake, they already feel bad for what they have done. But
Mhm.
if they have owned up and then they were insulted or punished or beaten, they are taken aback. So the next time, the only logical thing to do, because it's natural for a human being to want to avoid pain, right? Be it physical pain, be it emotional pain. The only logical thing for them to do is to try to avoid that pain, or to have that repeated pain. So they would paint the narrative, or they will lie, or they'll say something that didn't happen just to avoid that pain. So a child can lie for many different reasons. One, they're afraid of what your reaction would be. They don't want to get hurt. They do not trust your reaction. It could also be that they're mirroring a behavior that they have seen around. So some of us, I tell parents that whatever you don't want your child to learn, then you have to keep them away from you have to be a model for that behavior. So if we don't want our children to lie, then we shouldn't lie, whether we're talking to them or whether we're talking to other people. We have phone calls. You're at home, your friend is telling you to come, and you're like, oh, I'm already there, I'm almost there, I'm 10 minutes away, I've left the house. Your child is hearing, and that is what you're modeling. And children will mirror what they see, right? And sometimes it could just be something as simple as your child seeking attention as well. So, for example, I have a son who is very, very emotional and very, very clingy. So sometimes when he's trying to seek my attention, or when he really wants me to give him attention and he's not getting, maybe I'm working or I've been busy all day, he will say something like, maybe, mommy, my waist is hurting me, or mommy, this, but you would know that that's not what happening. And what happens is that in that instance, I will make a big deal out of it, because to him, it's not a big deal, because sometimes he'll then be like, oh, I'm just joking. And I'll tell him that in this house, even as a joke, we would not lie and we will not exaggerate, right? We will say things the way that they are. So that's one way of addressing it. Nip it in the bud, make a big deal out of it, and then teach your child how to, so for my son, in that instance, I'll say, if you need my attention, you can actually come to me and say, mommy, I really want to spend time with you, or mommy, I need a hug, or mommy, I want to tell you something. And that way you're teaching the child how to behave. And if you find out that your child is lying because they are afraid of you, you want to create a safe environment in your home where everybody feels like their voice can be heard, where they feel that they can express themselves without being judged, where they can trust you. You need to be consistent, because again, if you're someone who is volatile, your children will not trust you. So they're checking your body language, they're checking your reaction to see if they should say the truth or not. So you want to create a family environment where your children are not afraid. They can be naked and not ashamed. You want to create an environment where if there is one person that your child can tell anything and feel like that they can feel safe in their vulnerability, that person will be you. And that is really one of the ways to encourage our children to say the truth. Things happen, children make mistakes, but the first reaction is to always give your child a safe space to express themselves. And then you can then address and problem solve, whatever it is that has happened. No matter what the issue is, we're not raising perfect children. We're not raising robots, right? Children will be children. Children will make mistakes. What you want to do is to, in the midst of a mistake, first provide a safe space and then problem solve. Because even when we are reacting and shouting and everything, we're not teaching anything. But we'll talk about that when we talk about discipline. I don't want to jump ahead. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Vivian, for that. There's something that I shared on Mom's Summit before, no, on Wife Summit, which I'm going to share today. Some years ago, I bought some vouchers. The vouchers were £500 voucher, and I had three of them. So I gave them to my son, and I said, "Can you please take the vouchers and post them?" So this boy was walking the streets with £1,500 on him. And about 20 minutes after he left home to go to the post office, he came back and he said to me, "Mom, I've lost two of them." Ah, God. Post office is like 7 minutes walk from my house. My head was spinning. You've just lost £1,000. How? How? All you need to do is just walk like this, get to the post office, post them, come back home. That was all that I asked. Where did you go? How are you? Oh God. if you will not shout. Even Vivian will shout. Even Vivian, that is telling us to not shout, will shout. I was so angry. I was so mad. I was so angry. I was so vexed. And in the midst of all that shouting and talking, he was just quiet. He did not say a word. I was like, God, how am I going to do this? God, it's £1,000. God, how? I was so vexed within my spirit. And the Lord said to me, it's only money. It is only money. Money. When God spoke was when I realized, that was the first time I realized how I had blown this, how bad it had become. God said, it's only money, Omobola. So I called my son. I apologized to him. I said, my behavior was out of, but it's a lot of money. I said, I'm sorry I spoke to you that way. After I apologized to him, I then went back to God. I said, Lord, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. It's only £1,000. It's only £1,000. I'm sorry. Just let your mercy step in. I cannot afford to lose that money. A few hours later, there was a knock on the door. A gentleman that I've never seen before in my life was at our doorstep. He said, good evening. It was my husband who answered him, and he said, I was walking the dog and I saw an envelope on the floor. And I opened it, and I guess, it's something that you've lost, some gift cards. This guy, my name was only on one side of the envelope. The cards themselves do not have anybody's name on it. So a human being saw £1,000 and brought it to my door. That was the minute I realized the fact that God was in that scenario. God was interested in it. And I tell you, my dear sisters, it is possible that if I didn't apologize to my son, that money would have been lost forever. And then probably about 2 years later, my son and I went for a walk during COVID. We went for a walk and we're just going and we're just talking about parenting and how comfortable he is. And then I said, I don't even understand. The homes where children are running away. I did not know I was opening my own kind of home. I said, I don't even know. How can a child just run away? He said, whoa, 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 mother, just wait. It actually crossed my mind before. I stood still on the road. I said, Omobola, my son. He said, can you remember the day when the vouchers got lost? Hey, common sense entered my head. He said, by the time you were shouting at me, I was thinking to myself, I need to get away from this woman. I really need to get. I said, why did you not run? He said, well, number one, there's no way I could get from our house to anywhere. And I don't even have people that I could call. And I said, God, I hugged him right there on the road. I said, thank you, Lord, that he does not have anybody he can call to plan with to run away. But that tells you the extent to which I had done that. My reaction was so out of proportion. Well, £1,000 is not chicken money, but it was bad. So, like Vivian said, there are times we respond to situation. Molade told us yesterday, please be unshockable as a parent, because if your children make any mistakes and you decide to come down hard on them, the next time they make a mistake, they will just ignore you. They will go and talk to somebody. And that is how children end up with the wrong people, because they will go speak to their age mates, and the age mates will say, come and stay at mine. I'll take care of you. My mother is nicer. And then when they're there, there are lots of things that will be happening. So if your child is telling lies, going back to the beginning, it is not their ancestors. It is not the devil. You most likely caused it. So we will have another question for Irene, because I'm aware that she needs to go. So I'm gonna give Irene the next question and then we'll take it from there afterwards. So Irene, the question for you. Let's see, Irene. Irene, are you
Okay,
here
ma'am.
with us?
Yes, I am, ma'am.
So your next question is this: how do I safeguard my daughter from abuse?
So the first thing I want to say is that, Mama, there are different stages for different girls. So what safeguards a child at age 0 to 3, for instance, will not safeguard a child at 15 to 17. So, so for me, it's body safety education and building a rock solid self-esteem. So I'll walk through a framework that I designed for sex education that kind of just guides us. The first thing we need to understand is that at different stages of our children's life, they must have rock solid self-esteem, because whether it's predators, whether it's peers, they always manipulate identity. So, for example, when a pedophile wants to touch a child during the grooming stages, they touch them by isolating them emotionally. That's how they start. They groom them, they're nice to them, they say great things to them, they compliment them. So picture your innocent 6 to 8 year old where someone is trying to take advantage of her. Somebody say, "Oh, you're my favorite girl. Your ribbons are the best. You're my favorite. I prefer you to your sisters." Now, that is something that pulls the child towards the pedophile. Now, if a child has rock solid self esteem and you do it as strategically as you're supposed to, your child should not be shocked or wowed by compliments. It should be something they get enough of. And so, self-esteem is the one thing that cuts across all the ages. And self-esteem means different things for different kids. So, for example, for teenagers, self-esteem comes from having an honor-oriented relationship with your teenagers, where even when they misbehave, even when they do something you don't expect them to, they are sure that the correction will not come with shaming, it will not come with labeling, it will not come with, rehashing the issues. It will always point them to what is expected of them. Discipline in that way means this is what I expect of you. And whenever a child falls short, we recognize that it's either a lack of knowledge, a lack of skill, or forgetfulness, something like that. So when we focus on self-esteem, something that says, I don't ever want my child to wake up one day and not know that they're loved. We address that and we have it rock solid. Then we move into the next layer, which is what is sex education? Because data shows that sex education is the surest way to prevent sexual abuse from happening. Not CCTV cameras, sex education. When children know what abuse looks like, they can identify it. They know what to do. They know how to respond. Then we're on to a solid strategy. So, for example, I teach girls age 3 to 17 sex education, and by the way, it's Bible-based, abstinence-based sex education. So when kids are 3 to 5, they need to understand that they have private parts and nobody should touch them for any context. So, but now as a parent, you need to preempt that. What will make someone touch a 3 to 5 year old? Bath time with caregivers is an opportunity. So we have to teach kids that even when somebody is washing you, they can't stay too long washing your private part. When someone is cleaning up your butt when you use the toilet, they can't wipe for too long. Like I teach the girls in my class that nobody should wipe you more than 4 times. So they clean one, two. You'll be counting it for them. Once they get to 4, you stop. You tell them to stop. When they're 3 to 5, you also give them um things to note. For instance, you shouldn't be bathed anyhow. Somebody shouldn't call and say, "I want to bathe you," and here's a person to bathe you. So if an uncle visited the house and is just hanging around during the holiday, I say, "Let me help you bathe Norma." Norma should be able to say, "No, uncle, men don't bathe me." Speak up for herself. Also, Norma shouldn't be bathed at and just any time of the day. All right. So, for instance, you can give a cue when mommy is driving in, assuming you have a stable returning time. So, when mommy is driving in at 4 or 5, that's when it's Norma's bathing time. So, I heard you talking earlier about not sending children to crèche very early. I was one of those mothers that had to do that. However, I had a policy. Whoever was a housekeeper in my house could not bathe my kids. So it is when I come back, that was when I used to unpack, bathe them. That's when I used to note what happened. That was a lot of learning time. I remember people used to make fun of me that once I'm home with the kids, I'm offline until the next day. And that was what worked for me. So for 3 to 5 years, that's what it looks like. But 6 to 8 year olds are really curious. And for me, the biggest part for me is the dialogues in their head and the mouth. They are the ones that have time to banter with a pedophile. So a pedophile can say, "Do you want me to do this? Do you want me to do that?" So for them, you want them to identify conversations that are leading them somewhere. I have things I do with girls that I like, who the girls that are special to me, and your daughter should not say I don't. She should say I don't want to know. Now, because they like to banter, they like to gist, they talk a lot. They are the ones that will say, what do you do? Come and show me what you used to do. So they need to know those kind of strategies. 6 to 8 year olds are also the ones that are most likely to touch their peers. So with them, sexual abuse is no longer just adult. You've introduced the concept that peers can touch, they can do stuff with peers, and they're also the ones that may be slow to speak up. So you start to let them know that we speak up no matter what. We speak up whether we are at fault, we speak up whether we initiated it, we speak up whether we made a mistake or not. And something Vivian said that we all need to focus on is, if speaking up leads to shaming, leads to altercations, the child will not speak up again. But we need them to speak up. We need them to know it's never your fault. Let me give you a practical scenario. So we lived in a flat and we have someone in the BQ, and I would tell my daughters that you don't go to that house to do anything. And around that time, I had suspended DSTV. So my daughter have me recently that we've suspended DSTV since 2016. So the uncle, maybe he didn't know, it could be well intended, will come and tell them to come and watch Disney in his house. And my daughters will stand and look at him because mommy had said they should not. One day I told my daughters, in case one day by this pressure, you break, you can't cope, you went, I need to know what happened. What I was trying to say was, no matter what you contributed, I want to know. There are children who have been abused, but they can't speak up because something they did led to it. Something their parents might have warned them against led to it. And the reason I told my daughters was, the world is a broken place, it's a fallen place. That's why I'm even giving this advice. Ideally, it shouldn't be a problem for a child to walk into an uncle's house, watch TV, and get up and go home. So, what that means is that even though I'm telling you not to do this, you don't become guilty if an adult takes advantage of your naivety. I want to be able to know. Now, this layer, you see the way it goes. But when they get into 9 to 11, this is puberty. Sexual abuse for them takes a new phase at this point. There is still pedophilia threat, but now they have crushes. They like boys, or they like boys. Their friends are pressuring them. Their entire TV shows, the entertainment is all talking about crush, the prince, the princess. It's all those kinds of things. So your children's socialization is prone to making them act on crushes. Either tell a boy that they like the boy, or the boy asks them out, and it's the beginning of a lot. So once they get to 9 to 11, we start to talk to them about body honor, but also let them know that you're going through puberty, that changes going on in your body. You know what the right thing to do is, but you'll be under pressure. You'll be under pressure by the hormonal changes, and you'll be under pressure by the people around you. So when they get to 9, I start to teach them about friendship circles, because you're going to pick up the pressure in your environment. If your friends are doing it, you won't be able to stand for long. But now the good thing about it is, show the child how to do it by themselves. You won't always be there. So that's why relationship is very critical. So 9 to 11, we start to talk about pressures that come from crushes, from peers, and from trends. When they get to 12 to 14, we recognize that they've started hearing about abortion and pornography. I love first mention. So I'm the first person that's spoken to my kids about abortion. And so because of that, I'm speaking to them from a wholesome perspective. What are the risks? It's not just you got rid of the child. Are there other psychological impacts? Is there a guilt afterwards? I mean, I've met people who are afraid of rapture. They are born again,
Hmm.
but they detest rapture because of the fear that a child they aborted will meet them on judgment day. And so it gives me the opportunity to have real practical conversations. And mama, when they get to 15 to 17, we start to talk to them about dating. The principle for me is that girls should not date until they're 21. I don't think they're a car, they're not an election booth. I don't believe in 18 because they're still babies at 18. So I tell them to wait until they're 21. However, they still need to learn about what a wholesome relationship should look like, so that if they find themselves in a hazardous situation, they have the knowledge to remove themselves, which is what I was talking about before. I start talking about husband's house. What does a wholesome relationship look like? How do you know that somebody is the right person to be with? So I start to have that conversation with them when they're 15, knowing that some 16-year-olds are going to university, they're going to be living on their own, and they have to make their safety decisions by themselves. And so for me, that's what the framework looks like from age 3 all the way till 17. Thank you so much, Mama, for having me.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Irene. That is quite a lot to take on. I'm so glad that this is recorded and people can watch this later.
Thank you, ma'am.
Having a daughter who I have spoken to the point that when I say you look beautiful, she says, I know. I mean, that is a mantra. When she was much younger, we were going on a girls' weekend and decided that we're gonna drive, and we stopped at the services to get diesel and just have a quick snack. And we walked past a particular gentleman, and I saw how this man was staring at my daughter. I was embarrassed for that look. I walked up to him and I stared back at him. I was like, really? Really? I mean, how old? She was probably 8 or 9.
Whoa.
And I had to, I walked right to his front and I stared at him. And then he took his gaze off. And that just tells you what we're dealing with. As he said,
Yes,
when
yes,
we were growing up, the only thing that my mother made me afraid of was bomo bomo, which were kidnappers at the time.
yes, yes.
There was nothing like all this. If they want you not to take money, not to, it was all just
Yeah,
kidnapping. Now
yes.
there's
You
so
turn to
many.
yam. Yeah,
Yes, you go to yam or cocoa yam or fly or something, and they will carry you in their pocket. That was all that my mother warned me about. But look at
yes.
what is happening now. So it is important that you speak to your girl child. I spoke
Yes,
to my
absolutely.
son. If you hear me talking to my children, and I do believe that they are grateful for that.
Yes,
So
they
when
are.
you tell my daughter, like it was my 50th birthday 2 weeks ago, everybody was talking about how beautiful to her that is normal because I've said it so many times. In fact,
Yes,
I told
yes,
her, I said, look, head to toe, I ordered you. I There was a time I was telling her, your nails grow so fast. She said, oh, that was what you ordered, isn't it? You said you wanted a girl with long nails. And that was what she said to me because I've told her so much. I said, I told God I wanted a girl with a beautiful smile, with bright eyes, with a lovely skin, with long neck. I described it to her. I said, I placed an order and God delivered you. So
wow,
that
wow.
in itself, yes. And I do ask her questions. I've always told her, don't be afraid to be different.
Yes,
Everybody in her year, there was something they were going to do. They were registering for something. She said, Mom, not doing it. I said, why? She said, I don't want to. I was like, is it a reason? She said, I don't want to, just because everybody is doing it. And I went into the bedroom and I said, Mobola, well done.
yes, 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 yes.
Well done.
Done this
Well
one,
done.
man.
Well
This is
done.
good.
Well done.
Yes,
The same
yes.
applies to my son. I have
Yeah.
to explain to when it was time, when people, the attention, the dating, girls were asking him out because he
Yes.
was the only one that didn't have a girlfriend. So because he
Ooh.
refused to ask, they were coming to ask him. He came
Yeah.
home one day and he says, Mom, guess what happened today? I said, what happened? He said, they asked him. I said, who? I said, are they good looking? Is the girl good looking? He said, yeah, yeah. I said, so let's talk about the reason why she wants you as a boyfriend. I said, give me
Yeah.
4 reasons why you think this girl wants you. He said, I'm good looking. I said, point number one taken. Two, I'm very brilliant. I said, point number two taken. Three, is it makes people laugh. So I said, well,
Yes.
point taken.
Yes.
I said,
Good
number
humor. Yeah.
four, he said he thinks because they know my parents are very comfortable. I said, that's right. I'm gonna take you up on that. We were not even talking about salvation. We're not talking
Yeah.
about scriptures. I said,
Yes.
so what do you think about that part? I said, let me tell you why. A girl wants to come because you got money to spend. I said, okay.
Yes.
From when you were age 3, assuming I started putting money away for you in an account for your future, I said, as we speak, you are now, 14-year old. I said, where will you get the money to give this girl? He said, he doesn't have money. I said, so that means you're going to be asking me to give you my money or the
Money
money I
to
put
go
away
and
from
take care of
you.
her.
I said, and I can tell you definitely you will not marry her. So she's just coming to eat your money and run away. I said, in Yoruba land, there is something that this is called is highway robber. I said, so if you don't want any highway robber touching your money, let them go. And I
Yes.
left that there. Once my husband taught them about delayed gratification when it came
Yeah.
to sex. So
Oh,
what we teach our children goes a long
yes.
way,
Goes a
and
long
it
way.
just
Yes.
equips them. So when the
Yes.
abusers come, and these abusers are everywhere, they are in the
Yes.
family, they are at
Mhm.
school, they are
Yes.
yes. My son, when he was in nursery, a certain gentleman said his lips, he said, "Oh, you got pink lips." I was like, goodness me, you meant
What
to
is
be
that?
a protector. You're looking at my son's pink lips. Oh, I had to flag it up. I said it was inappropriate. I mean, looking
Yeah.
at a boy and say, "Oh, what a clever boy you are." You're looking at his pink lips. In these days,
Yes.
where people don't know whether they are male or female, I had to flag pink
Yes.
lips up. That somebody
Yeah.
was admiring my son's pink lips.
Big one.
Anyway, Irene, thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so
I'm
much,
gonna have
Mama.
to let
Thank
you
you.
go now. Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
Mom.
much
I'm
for
so
joining
grateful.
us.
Thank you.
I
Thank you,
believe
Mom.
that yes, you've delivered as much as God will allow you to deliver to
Amen.
us,
Thank you
and
so
I'm
much,
sure
Mom.
you'll be back soon. God bless you,
Thank you,
sis.
Mom. All right, Mom.
Thank
Have a wonderful evening. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you. So Irene is gone, and now we are left with our sisters. I'm sorry, ladies, I had to do that. Irene sent a personal message. She had to get out by 20 past. Women and our busy lifestyle. So we're back. Let me go straight to Toye. So let's bring Toye back on board. So Tony, I saw you there just looking when Irene was firing away.
Yes,
You
sir.
know, I wish we could have her for a bit longer. I've learned so much.
Absolutely.
Yes, I've learned so much. I'm sure she'll be
I
back.
have as well.
Now, how do you navigate a regular time to develop your children spiritually? This woman says, I feel bad that my children are not interested in God and they're not interested in the Bible. I feel like I have failed in this aspect of motherhood. What do you have to say, Tony?
Okay. Lovely question. I wonder how old the children are though, because it's almost like you are giving up. Why are you giving up? When you plant a seed, that seed, depending on the type of seed it is, takes time to grow. And the very first thing I would say is, don't give up. That's a defeatist attitude. Failed. When you're marking yourself as failed, that's what's F. No, you haven't failed. The very first thing I would, want us to look at in terms of this, because I know it's a challenge for many mothers. It's almost like, I'm not seeing any results. Um, we shouldn't separate our secular lives from spiritual. That's what a lot of people do. You think back to when you were growing up. Oh, you went to church on Sunday, you went to Bible study, you had morning devotion, you had evening devotion. Your lives were full of prayer and fasting. If I count the number of times I went to to church as a child, you know, church should be written all over my face. But what now happens Monday to Friday, or what happens outside of church, what happens out of the setting. And I think that's where, as mothers, as parents, we need to look at. Our children are not fools. They can tell when you are into it. They can tell when you are just, putting up a facade, church elders, church deacon, but yet I will not say more than that. At the end of the day, our children are able to see through any disguise. So, what is your own relationship with God like? Is it genuine, or are you just doing it? There are many people who go to church as a social, commitment. That's my corporate social responsibility on Sunday. Are you truly a Christian? The first thing I would say as well is, for me, my focus was on, Lord, praying my children into the kingdom. Once they make that decision for Christ, my work is done. When I say my work is done, it's never ever done. But that's the first step. And that's what I would say, focus on. Once your children become Christians, you really cannot force somebody whose spirit has not been renewed to do the things of the kingdom. It would be like, they don't even understand. But once they become born again, you'll be the one saying, this reading Bible, take time off. No, you won't. But, because once your heart is, once your spirit is born again, once you are renewed, you are a child of God, you are his, everything within you testifies that God is your father. Nobody's going to beg you to read the Bible. Nobody's going to beg you to be praying. Nobody's going to beg you to be following, to go to church. It will come naturally. So I would say, first of all, ensure that you are not separating your life into secular and spiritual. If you are a born again Christian, if you are a kingdom family, everything you do, for me, there's no time that is not communion time. We're in the car, we're learning memory verses. We're in the car, we're reading the Bible. Sometimes you put the Bible, my daughter would not say, mommy, put on the Bible. You put it on audio and you're listening to it, asking questions. That's a time. You're at home, you are talking, incorporate scripture. You are there, you have a challenge as a family, bring everybody together. When we were growing up, a lot of things is now as an adult, you realize, we went through these times. Let your children, come in, build their faith. This is the challenge the family has at work, or what you call it. Come together as a family and agree. You want to embark on a project, allow your children pray. Their faith is amazing. They believe God like this. So don't separate, this is secular, this is spiritual. It is the entirety of your life. The Bible says in 2 Corinthians 2:14, thanks be to God who leads us. Let me read this version. Wherever we are, on his own triumphant way, and makes our knowledge of him spread through the world like a lovely perfume. We Christians have the unmistakable scent of Christ, discernible alike to those who are being saved and to those who are heading for death. If you are a Christian, if you are genuinely born again, if you know God, you have a scent. That scent cannot, I like using this illustration of when we're children. I remember one of my father's friends came to the house, and for almost 2 weeks after, the perfume he used was still smelling on our chair. That's how we are as Christians. Everywhere you go, so you cannot fake it. You cannot, you can't fake it. You're either a Christian or you are not. You have a scent, you have a light, and that is what our children see. You are able to make tough decisions, hold on to God when everything is going loose. Those are lessons. Those are seeds that are planted in their hearts. And the Bible says when they grow old, they will not depart from it. So first of all, drop this guilt. I feel bad. What have you filled out? Are you a Christian? Are your children born again? Have they accepted Jesus? And they will when they see the fruit of your life. They will when when they can smell Christ. We are discernible. This is not, puts the Bible aside. No, the Bible is our life. Everything we do. And for people who are believing God for their children to be saved, we have promises. Acts 16, believe on the Lord Jesus Christ and you will be saved, you and your household. So you hold on to that promise. You hold on to that promise. You hold on to that promise. Me and my household is what the Bible says. And therefore my children will not, be outside the kingdom. They come in because I have believed. So please don't separate the spiritual and secular. There's nothing like, church life, secular life. Everything is integrated. Pray out loud. They will follow your example. Read the Bible. They will follow your example. Amen.
Amen. Our children are watching, they're learning from us. They learn actively and they learn passively. So, whatever is your priority, the children will end up making it their priority. And you see, in these days and in this day and age, social media is teaching us a lot of things. Like Precious Jewels is one platform where you've learned quite a lot. But if you're not careful, you will assume that everything is as you always see it. At times when you see people who are perfect children, perfect mother, perfect doctor, perfect, everything. No, that's not right. There are many times that things are not working the way you see it. I am one person, believe it, whatever you say about it, that is absolutely fine. When I go into my house, I remember that this is my house. You are not coming to inspect it tomorrow morning. So if I've come back from work and I'm extremely tired, I have a shower and I go to bed. It is still my house. A lot of women will give ourselves targets, too many targets, that you feel like you failed. Nobody gave you that target, you did. Okay? So make use of the time. Talk to your children, actively talk to them passively. Introduce God to them in every way and every form that you know. Okay? Just do it and leave the maturing to God to do. You are not the owner of the children. You are a custodian. God is still involved in the life of the children. And if you've got to the end of the road, you don't know what to do. The Bible says that if you don't know which way to go, speak, ask me, and I will guide you. So, some of us, I may boast that, every Sunday For an hour, my children and I, we do Bible study. And you see this comparison that is going on. When a woman will now come and tell you that she's an engineer, she has 17 degrees, and she still manages to do Bible study with the children every night. You now carry that from Instagram and you are now stressing about it. The Bible says that those that compare themselves with themselves are not wise. It is the same Bible that says we should challenge or steer each other towards greater work. But it's the same Bible that says if you're comparing yourself with yourself, you're not wise.
Yeah,
Our
otherwise.
children are not your children. Our
Mm,
target is not your target. I use
mm,
myself as an example. When I'm spending time with my daughter, we're talking on the phone, we're doing everything together. You may not have that time, and your daughter may
mm.
not be at the age of my daughter. Okay,
That's it.
people are different stages and phases. Please do not let anybody frustrate you with how they are doing and the results they are getting. You may see me post early in the morning, you may see me post during my lunch break at work, and then I come home, I'm doing mom's altar, I'm doing all of this, and you're like, oh God, the anointing upon Omobi's life. I really want that kind of anointing. Remember, I've got two children who are grown. I've got two children who are grown. A woman asked me in Australia some years ago and said, "Oh, Mobo, I just want to, I love the way you are. I love how, you are following, you are pursuing the things that God has called you to do." I said, "My dear sister, how old are your children?" One is 3, the other one is just a toddler, just coming up. I said, "Please, for
It's all
now,
good.
please forget about anointing. The
Yeah.
anointing you have at the moment is for the children in your house.
Mm,
At this moment, if I cook, when my family sees me in the kitchen, my husband is dancing around the house because he knows, oh, we have this woman's undivided attention today. Both everybody in my house can cook a meal of their own. They don't need me to do anything for them apart from smile and be happy and be
mm.
praying for them. So please do not put yourself under any undue pressure. Your children are not leaving your house tomorrow. You will still support them
There's
in
one.
their desire to know the Lord and to serve the Lord. Thank you so much, Tony.
Thank
We
you, ma'am.
will bring joy now. We'll bring joy back to the stage. And Joy, let's talk about the inevitable discussion. Mobile phone, tablets, devices, it's causing chaos in a lot of families.
Yeah.
There's a fight at bedtime. No, give me, I don't want, you want it. And there's no structure. How do we
Yeah.
manage this?
I think that's really foundational. Not only because you want to manage you want to manage the time your children spend on the screens. Yes, we know how important it is to preserve their mental health and their emotional health. Even we as adults, we were talking about it earlier, ma, how you wake up in some people wake up in the morning and all of a sudden they pick up the phone, something pings, a notification pings from Instagram, and off you go on the streets of Instagram. um, for children, you want to protect their mental health and their emotional health, and screens will definitely not help to do that. What times do you set? Where do the phones go when it's time for bed? When it's time for bed, do you allow the phones in the room? I've got a teenage daughter, and up till now, she's mid-teens. Up till now, she doesn't have a phone yet because of our structures in the house and boundaries. She doesn't need one yet. We're trying to prolong it as far as we can. And the ones that are younger already know if the oldest doesn't have one yet, they can't have one. And bedtime is a particular time of the day. The older ones have a bedtime, that is matched and suited to their age and what they need to do. The youngest one goes to bed earlier than the others. And at that point, for example, screen time, we don't watch TV during the week. My kids don't watch TV during the week. Monday to Friday, there's no TV. So we have that, and they know we have that structure in place. Even if you are visiting, say for example, you have a family member that is visiting, and whilst they were in school and things like that, they were watching TV. When the children come back, it is clear that, oh, we don't watch TV during the week, and children go to bed. When they've gone to bed, if it's an adult and they want to stay in front of the TV, no problem. So screen times, you do need a lot of boundaries around it to protect them, because there's this thing they say about going to bed straight after you've watched the screen. You can't, your mind can't relax, and it's just causing a lot of chaos for you at that point in time. So if bedtime is 7:30, and you haven't gotten to the point where you're taking screens away during the week. You want to take the screens at least before dinner. Take the screens away. You can't be eating and being on, be on the screens. You have to have regulated times for screens if you have children. A lot of parents just give the children the screen to while away the time, or just because they feel like I need to get something done very quickly, so let me put them in front of the screen. Have you watched how they behave when you take those things from them? They throw We were talking about tantrums. Dr. Okoye was talking about tantrums. The kind of tantrums they throw, you know when they have their devices taken from them at a particular time, you would not believe. You wonder, is this my child? What's going on? So you need to really help them regulate. They don't know how to do it. You don't have to coerce them and be so militant into making them take the screens if you've not had the structure in place. So if you're in that place now, where your children are still screaming at you because you're taking the screens away, start to work things little by little. Start with one day. Start with some conversation that will take the screens away or the devices away at this time. They might not agree with you on the first day, but be consistent. Children are sticklers for consistency, especially in in our own lives. They watch us, and they are waiting for, they watch when you fall off the wagon. When you fall off the wagon and it's just a one-off, fine. But if you're constantly falling off the wagon, there's going to be they'll take advantage of that because you're not consistent. So gradually, wean them off the screens and the tablets to get to bedtime. I remember when my first two were younger, 7:30 was bedtime, and sometimes my husband would come back from work just after that, and because he knows they're in bed, he tiptoes into the house so they don't wake up. And since they didn't watch TV during the week at all, there was no talk of device. What we did was we did our homework. They did some painting and coloring, some puzzles, had dinner, and they had some time to play. So the food settled. We did our bedtime routines, we prayed, and we went to bed. And it happened like that for so many years. When I noticed that, okay, they were a little bit older, we reduced the timing because, they say if they are younger, maybe 10, 11 hours, because their brain is still developing and all of that. And you will find that when your consistency is established, when you're so consistent with this thing, at 7:30, no matter what that child is doing, they're nodding off. They're starting to feel really sleepy, and that's because you've kept that consistent. My youngest goes to bed around 8 o'clock every night, even if it is a weekend. He wants to stay with his older ones who go to bed at 9 o'clock, but you're looking at him and you're like, you're not going to be able to stay up. No, mommy, can I just stay up? Okay. You watch him 5 minutes, he's nodding off. And that's because we've had that consistency built in, and his body clock has adjusted to that. So he knows what his bedtime is. All you need to say is bedtime. He shuts his puzzles, whatever cards he's playing with, and we're up to bed. So consistency is what makes our structures and our boundaries stick the most, because kids are watching us. They're seriously watching us. So that's what I will say about screens. If you are not there yet, because there are so many parents who are struggling with devices and screens at the moment, gradually start to wean them off it. And you can't wean a child off screens and devices with in your authoritative mode and all of that. You've got to start to have some conversations with them, explain some things to them, and then when you're weaning them, be consistent. You've got to be consistent because you have an outcome that you desire out of it.
Hmm. Thank you so much, Joy. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Some of us parents are addicted to our devices as well.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
don't know how easy it is to tell a child, put away your phone when you've
And
got
you're
yours all the time and they're watching you. The
absolutely, ma'am.
children are seeing you. They see that
Yeah.
you yourself, you've got a diagnosis, and then you're
Yes.
trying to treat them.
Yes,
So,
ma'am. I agree. Especially now that we have to work, a lot of us work from home. We're
yes,
working from home but mommy, you're still in front of your laptop. How many times do you want to say you're working? How many times do you want to make a case for yourself and say what you're doing behind your phone or your laptop is actual work?
work.
Sometimes they're looking at you and like, but Mom, you're not on your phone. You're not working at this moment. I can see what you're doing. You're laughing at something. So we we
Ouch, ouch, ouch. These children, unbelievable. They are smart. This generation, I can't even
they're on a
understand. They
different. They have a
know
different.
easily.
They came with a different technology. Is what I say.
They
They
did, they
just.
did. Yeah, yeah. There's been an upgrade. Where we are like Nokia 3310, they are
I'm
iPhone 11.
telling you.
I tell you, the things they know at this age without us teaching them is unbelievable. You know, when
Yes,
you're
ma'am.
trying to be shy about something and your child comes and just mentions
Just
it.
gives it to you. Oh yes.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Joy. That was brilliant.
Yes, ma'am.
Now we're gonna have Dr. Koye come back on stage. Dr. Koye, we've missed your face. This is the question for you. Most African parents find it difficult to say sorry or affirm their children's effort. What is the impact of this on their growth and mental well-being?
All right. So, first of all, when we don't apologize to our children, what we're saying is that depending on what has happened, what we're saying is that we're either saying that we're never wrong, or we're either saying that how we have treated them is right, even though they don't feel right about it. And essentially, when you make a child feel like you are infallible, because most times our children look up to us, they see us, they see how we conduct our lives, and they want to meet up to our expectations. So when we make ourselves look infallible on our children, we're only wearying them, because then when they keep making mistakes, they're looking at a mother or a father who supposedly doesn't make mistake, and who supposedly they are trying to gain their validation and their commendation. But this parent figure is then telling their children that they never make mistake, because they're never wrong, because they never apologize. That is too hard on a child, because you're sending your child in a loop and in a cycle where they keep asking themselves what is wrong with them when they make mistakes, because they've been taught that mistakes are not right, that when you make mistake, you're a failure, that kind of thing. And when we hurt our children and we don't apologize to them, what we're saying to them is that they deserved what we did to them, and that their feelings do not matter. And that is also a conditioning, because one thing we do is that we don't realize that whatever we're teaching our children at home becomes their template for how they behave and engage and interact with other people. So we want to start on time to show up and to give our children templates for relationship, for engaging with other people, that is healthy for them, for their psychological well-being and for their mental health as well. So when we wrong our children, or when, because sometimes they may not even, depending on the relationship, because everything we're talking about this night falls on the backdrop or the foundation of relationship that you have built with your children over time. So if you have a great relationship with your children, and they're bold enough to tell you that you have hurt them, that what you have said or what you have done was hurting to them, it is really appropriate to have a conversation and really apologize to them, because then when somebody hurts them outside, they will not accept being gaslighted. They will not accept people walking over them and not being accountable for their actions, right? Because the 6-year-old, the 7-year-old, the 10-year-old that you have in your child, in your house, will become an 18, 20, 25-year-old that would engage with other people, and whatever template that you have given to them in your house is how they would engage with other people. Then talking about validating our children, paying attention to when they do things and acknowledging those things. Very important for our children's self-esteem, because again, the family is where your child is, getting a sense of self. Your child is practically doing everything that they do, especially when they are really young, doing everything that they do to please you. Your child wants to see that mommy is happy with me, that daddy is happy with me. And it's really important to them that you acknowledge that. It means a lot to them. Because when you don't, then there's a gap, because that need for acknowledgement is a natural human need. Everybody Even you as an adult, you want to be acknowledged for the work that you do. When we don't do that enough at home, then we have left a gap in our children where they are now gonna start seeking that validation from external sources, and you don't know who they are going to want to seek validation from, and how those people might take advantage of them. So it's important that at home, that our children have their cups filled, their confidence cup filled, that they are affirmed, that they are acknowledged, that their buckets of confidence if is filled so much, so that they don't need another person. They don't become people pleasers. They don't become people who engage with people just to get validation. They don't become people who are, overdoing things outside just because they want people to notice them, they want people to pay attention to them, that their self-esteem is well built, and that they are their authentic self, and when they go out, they would have the confidence to engage and walk away from situations that don't serve them. So it's really, really important. And when you also apologize to your children, you're also teaching them how to acknowledge when they go wrong, because it's all a matter of conditioning, it's all a matter of training, it's all a matter of mirroring. If you always insist in your own ways, your children will also grow up. By the time they're becoming teenagers, they will start insisting in their own ways, because that's not something that is common in your own family system. Everybody is right. So it's really important that we mirror what we want to see in our children.
Thank you so, so very much. Thank you. That is amazing. Say sorry, say when you're wrong, say it and mean it. Don't buy them ice cream just because you're sorry. Don't, yeah. I remember some years ago when I put a post up about husband always buying jewelry instead of saying sorry. Somebody said I'll have the jewelry and I'll say sorry. I said that's fine, but say sorry and act sorry and mean it and give apology. No, sorry, no, say sorry. Give them their sorry. It makes them feel good. It makes them
Mhm.
feel heard. It makes them feel like this is a human being. You know, some of us are so proud. You say, my
Yeah.
parents never say sorry to me. Did your parents use iPhone? Just say sorry. Apologize when you've done something. Say, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have behaved that way. I do apologize, and it wouldn't happen again. What you're doing is you're teaching that child. You're giving
That's a
them a
welcome.
crucial, yeah, you're equipping them to live amongst human beings. So when your daughter gets married and her husband does something wrong, she is expecting an apology. Some people don't know how to apologize.
Yeah.
And some people feel they don't deserve an apology. Of course, I do deserve an apology. And we don't sweep things under the carpet. You don't take them and to go and buy shawarma because you did something wrong. That is sweeping it under the carpet. You need to address it. If you
Mhm.
raise a girl in that situation, if you raise a boy in that situation, that boy would never, open up to his wife to say, darling, what I did yesterday was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. Because the
Mhm.
father never apologized. He never saw his dad apologize. And the woman, you know, if the husband doesn't say sorry, she just accepts whatever. And then when it's time for Jerusalem journey, she is expected to just sweep that feeling under the carpet and just submit herself. Lots
Mm.
of things that we're doing that we don't even know how it's affecting our children. So
The
we
future.
need to be aware of that. So Sister Tony, let's have you back now. Let's add Tony to the stage. So Tony, I needed to share with us some tips which have helped you on your parenting journey. I presume there's quite a few of them.
Yes, I would just talk about a few. I think the first thing for me is accepting help, learning to accept help, because it takes a village. You are one person with limitations. You cannot see everything, you cannot do everything, you cannot be everything to your child. Yes, that child was given to you, but for me, is saying, I need help. I can't do this myself. And honestly, I started out, thinking I was a superwoman. I was everything until I broke down. So I learned the hard way, accept help. people would offer, because the beautiful thing about people, especially people who love you, is they can see what you cannot see. Your perspective, because you're so close, you are in that situation, it's very different. So accept help, you know, accept help. Like it goes without saying. The second thing is, for me, go with your guts. There are many times. Okay, let me pedal back a bit. One of the beautiful things about being a Christian is you have the Holy Spirit, knowing that you are not just the only one. You know, God didn't give this child to you, with a black book. You can actually go back and ask and say, Father, this child you have given me, there are issues. You go back to God and he would reveal them. I remember once I had difficulty with my first daughter. She just was not, discipline was hard. And I remember that night, I didn't say too many words. I was just like, God, just help me. What exactly do I need to do for her? And I couldn't sleep. It must have been 1 a.m., 2 a.m. I just went to my bookshelf, picked up a book. It wasn't a book on motherhood. It was not a book on, it wasn't, it was not a, it was a book on, I don't even know the topic, but it was written by a woman whose parents were missionaries. And I happened to open the chapter where she was talking of how her parents disciplined herself and her brother. My dear sisters, it was the answer I was looking for. It was, I just knew that was God. By myself, that book had been on my bookshelf for months. I had bought it months earlier, if not maybe over a year earlier. But the night I needed it, I asked and I got the answer. The third thing, go with your guts. That a lot of times mothers go to the clinic with their baby and they can't really explain, what's wrong with your child. Kilo shomoyi. They just say, no, there's something wrong with this child. And a lot of times, doctors find that, yes, the mother was right. There actually was something. They couldn't articulate it. They couldn't, they couldn't state what exactly it was, but they knew, as a lot of the times, and I believe, it's the Holy Spirit that is let me use ringing a bell. Your child comes home from school and there's just something, you can't place your finger on it, but go with your gut, ask, don't keep quiet. That's the other thing. The one thing I want to emphasize on is, because a lot of women struggle with this, you are the best parent for your child. I remember Mama Mobi saying this a couple of years ago, and I've never forgotten it. You are the best parent for your child. A lot of people feel, oh, am I doing the right thing? Am I adequate? Let all that die down. You are the best for me. Just knowing that these two girls the Lord has given me, he gave them to me because there was something about me that needed, to parent them. I'm the best parent for my children. As much as I would listen to advice, I would take on wisdom. So not allowing, I think for me, that has been the biggest lesson, not allowing feelings of inadequacy and guilt to prevent me from seeing road and doing what I need to do. Just knowing that in this situation, at this time, at this moment, I'm parenting these two gifts and I am best positioned to do so because God in his wisdom has brought them to my doorstep. The last thing I would say, well, which is just a repetition of everything I've said, is knowing that you are not alone. You have women who've gone ahead of you. By the grace of God, even if your mom and your grandma are not available, there are older women, in church. I think it's the book of Titus that talks about older women, nurturing the younger ones and telling them stuff. Don't do this life alone. Don't do this life alone. Even if people are not asking, to help you, look out. There's a community of people. In Nigeria, we say it takes a village. Well, I don't know, it's not just Nigeria. It takes a village to raise a child. Look out for your village. Look out for your village. Go ask. A lot of people are very closed. Life doesn't work that way. You have the wisdom of God on the inside of you. Look out and see who can help you with what. Even if they don't, you've made the attempt, but look out. There are people that God has placed around you for a specific reason. and accept the help that they offer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sis. Accept help, accept help, accept help. That is so important because at times we don't, when we pray, like I shared in a video a few days ago, when we pray, we ask God for many things. But then when He sends the answer, we're binding the devil or we're suspecting the devil as the one who has brought it. You prayed, friends, when you were in the secondary school, you say, Father, I thank you because I receive help at every stage in my life. You said that sentence when you were in 200 level in the uni. And then you move into a neighborhood and your next door neighbor tries to be nice and you're like, all these white people. That help, God had prepared that help for you before you arrived. But no, you are stuck in how you see people and you cannot go beyond. Yesterday I was as I was driving, I was just going through the story of this man who got attacked by armed robbers, and there was this traveler who helped him, and I was just dissecting that story and say, look, at the end of the day, even when you're walking into something that you shouldn't walk into, God will still send a little bit of help. That road, everybody knew that road to be a notorious road. Yet this man decided to travel that road. But there are people who have traveled that road before and they knew where you shouldn't walk. And one of them was available to help this man. There were so many people who walked by and did not help him. And that is how your journey is as a mother. Oh, this person did not help me. That person did not help. But the one that God said should help did not leave him. If you remember that story, the Bible says he deposited money for them to take care of a total stranger until he returned. I mean, who does that? Who does that? So remember that no matter where you are, you may say you don't have help. Ask God to show you the help He has sent. When I will say this because I'm also, well, I've also been in this situation. Many years ago, my family, we were the only one in the town where we live. I'll call it the village where we live. So when you see a fellow black person, the first question is, should I be nice? Are they nice? Would they want to come to my house? I don't like anybody coming to my house. Would they want to come to my house? And when they come to my house, are they talkative? That is, my brain was just say hello. I was already calculating who that person will be. Would the person want to be whatever? At the end of the day, when somebody finally moved to my neighborhood, in fact, when I travel, I'm like, thank God. She's like, yeah, how are you there? My family eating. And that is what it has now become. It has even become a joke. Because when I'm not around, the person will come here and say, hello, just to let you know, your family is eating meat pie. And see how many years I was fighting that. But God had planned and prepared the help. So, my dear sisters, instead of you feeling like you're overwhelmed, you don't know what to do, ask God. One, ask God for help if you haven't. Number two, ask Him to help you recognize the help when they come. I am one woman and I teach this. Your doors cannot afford to be open to anybody, anyhow. This person that I'm talking that brings meat pie to my house, I asked God, introduce me to this woman. It was very simple. Our husband had a dream that they moved into our neighborhood and called my husband. I said, hello, sir. This is the dream. My husband said, God is indeed speaking because I am aware of that. So they came, they settled. And then the wife tried to be close to me. And I asked God, what do I do? And I had a dream. It was very clear. I had a dream with the three of us walking. I pushed the other person away and I brought this woman close. And I said, hey, I've got a friend. And then there was another thing that happened. I used to run and then I stopped. I used to go for exercise a lot and then I stopped. And then I had a dream. This was me asking God to introduce this person to me and why they've come into my life. And this lady in my dream visited my house. And she was being nosy and was going into every corner of my house. And suddenly, I saw that she had been into a room where I kept a lot of treasures under the ground. And she said, Mama, come, can we share this? And in that dream, I was like, that is meant to be kept away. Nobody is meant to see that or open it up. And she said, me, I have seen it too, and there's nothing you can do about it. So in the course of talking to her, what that told me was that there was something that is meant to benefit me that I put away to the point that I've forgotten about it, and that this woman will come and bring it back to life. And guess what that is? Exercise. I had stopped exercising. And this woman would come and she just tell me, Mama B, I've just done 5 kilometer run this morning. I was like, hey, you run? Hey. So what did I do? I went abroad. I bought running shoe, running clothes. I brought it home. I said, oh yeah, let us start working. That is what we're talking about. There is a help at every junction for you. God will not leave you without any help. The question is, one, will you accept the help? Will you recognize the help? And will you accept it? I know you should guard your home. As I've shared with you, I did not just open my doors to people anyhow. I asked God and God answered. So help is available. If you are struggling, God says, ask. Let's bring Vivian on stage now. Vivian, the moment you have been waiting for, please tell us discipline, what it is and what it is not. God bless you. Let's go rest for a minute.
Thank you, Ma. All right. So, discipline, when we talk about discipline, the first thing that comes to an average person's mind is, discipline is when a child misbehave and you want to teach the child a lesson. For many people, it's about shouting, correcting your child. When they say, my parent is very, very disciplined, is a parent that was really authoritative, shouting, flogging and stuff like that. But really, discipline is from the root word disciple. So essentially, discipline is about discipling your child, is about teaching your child, is about instilling values in your child. I tell people that parenting is about marketing your values, marketing your ideas to your child until they accept it, adopt it, and become ambassadors of those same values and those ideas. And what do I mean? When you have a product that you want to sell, you sit down and you reflect and you think about how you're going to present and package that product to your customers in a way that they will adopt it, right? It's just the same thing, because the journey that we want to take with our children is the journey of actually teaching them values that will help them, empowering them so that they can thrive in the world. Discipline is not something you do when the behavior has happened. You start discipline right before behavior, in fact, the time to discipline, when we talk about disciplining children, is not the time that the behavior has happened. You start on time. What are the things that I need to start teaching my children per age, per time? Right? So discipline is not about shouting, it's not about flogging, and even when something happens, when a child has misbehaved, and this is like, telling us, what this is telling us is that as parents, the first point of action that we really have to take in the journey of parenting is to get our emotions in check, to learn how to really control ourselves. We can't have our emotions running all over the place and transferring aggression, because most of the things that we're beating children for, shouting at children for, are things that we don't have any moral justification to really shout at them for, because we haven't, first of all, taken time to teach them about those things. A child does something that you have never taken your time to teach them, something that you have never had a conversation with them about. And then the first thing is to punish, the first thing is to, shout, the first thing is to flog, right? We have to understand that, first of all, we have to teach, and that is what discipline is really all about. And even in the heat of moments, when a child does something, when you shout and when you hit, you haven't taught anything. Because when you're shouting, your child enters the stress, the stress response is activated because your child enters into that shock, or when you're hitting the child, they are stressed, right? And at that moment, that is the stress. When the stress response is activated, the thinking part of the brain, the learning part of the brain is takes the back seat, it shuts down. So after the shouting, let's say a child does something and then you start shouting, you start beating and all of that. After that shouting, if you haven't taken your time to teach anything, there's nothing that has happened. The only thing you have done is to punish your child, to cause them pain, and to maybe cause them to avoid you or avoid those situations out of fear. But you haven't really taught them the skills to avoid or to navigate such challenges whenever it happens again, which is really what discipline should be. Discipline is about teaching your children skills. So whenever something happens that is out of place, it is an opportunity for us to look at those situations critically and think about what are the skills that I need to teach my child in this moment, so that the next time something similar is about to happen, they would be able to recognize it and they'll be able to navigate it, right? And again, I have to point out that when we also teach in the process of disciplining, when we also teach, we must allow learning to happen. So, because for example, the fact that a child did something today and I had a conversation with them today about it doesn't mean that they may not make similar mistakes tomorrow. So we must be patient to allow learning to happen. Just the way it is between you and your customer, that you started marketing a product to a customer today doesn't mean that they will buy from you today. You have to keep marketing, you have to keep being in your customer's face, you have to keep adapting your products to be attractive to your customer until they're able, to buy it, use it, and then send you feedback. That's the same way with our children. Discipline is not about hitting your child. So the next time you hear the word discipline, let what come to your mind be teaching. That is really what discipline is about. It's about teaching. It's about looking at the values that you want to instill in your child, communicating those values clearly in a way that your child understands it, and then continue to teach them, continue to exemplify those values, continue to create a home where those values are, very visible and very, very glaring to your children until they learn it, until they adopt it, until it becomes a lifestyle. Everything we have been talking about today, from the structure, from teaching your children about God, it's all about consistency. It's all about modeling. Right. And that is what discipline is about. The behaviors that you're struggling with, I said this before, it's really communication, it's really feedback. Anything that your child is repeatedly doing, it's feedback to you. And parenting also requires us to sit down to reflect and say, what is it that this behavior is telling me? What haven't I taught? What do I need to teach? And sometimes it may not even be you that need to teach those lessons. I was talking to an older, somebody like what Sister Molara said now, I was talking to an older woman, right? I was asking her how she was able to teach her daughter. Her daughter is about 18 years old. So I admired it. So I was asking her how she was able to teach her daughter. She was like that in her journey of parenting, she had people who were her peers. She had people who were older than her in the journey, and she had very younger people who were not even parents. Because at some point when her daughter was becoming a teenager, when she needed to communicate something to her daughter, and her daughter is looking at her and calling her old school and saying, "Mommy, you don't know what's up," she'll just go and call Auntie Chichi or Auntie Adeline and say, Auntie Adeline, come and tell your sister that this is what I'm trying to communicate, right? So sometimes the values that you want to teach your children, or the skills that you want to teach them, or the thing that you're struggling with, with your child, the behavior that you're struggling with might require you to bring another person in to try to communicate that thing. Right, just like, again, using the analogy of being a business person selling a product, sometimes you need to bring a marketing expert to teach you how to package your product to sell it to your customers. And we have the Holy Spirit as well. So the journey of discipline is primarily about teaching. It's primarily about teaching. So every time a behavior happens, every time a misbehavior happens, what you need to have in mind around disciplining your child is, how do I teach my child how not to behave this way again, or how to avoid this behavior, and not how do I cause my child pain, how do I punish my child, because that pain doesn't teach any lesson. That pain only starts to make your child to resent you, or to feel that they are being treated poorly, instead of making them to think about the behavior and, being remorseful, and then learning how to avoid that behavior. That should be our focus, teaching our children how to think about what they have done and how not to do it next time, and being remorseful where they have made an honest mistakes, really honest mistake.
Thank you so much, Dr. Koye. Essentially, if you've corrected your child, or if you've disciplined your child and they have not learned anything, then that discipline has not been effective. You should
Yeah.
make them a disciple. That is, win them over, give them information, give them a knowledge that they didn't have before that discipline. So
Mhm.
discipline is not in the harshness, is not in the shouting, is not in your angry tone, is not in your, taking something away from them. That may not be effective, except they've
Mhm.
learned a lesson how not
Mm.
to do something, or
Yeah.
the consequence of what they've done. Thank you so much for that. So Joy is back, and we'll bring Joy to the stage now. Now, Joy, at which point do you know that your child is struggling to juggle things together? This morning we had Dr. Alugo come and talk to us about children who have a little bit of difficulty in things.
Mm.
So, at which point do you know that your child is struggling to juggle things together? Most especially in a society where we, the parents, we're showcasing how perfect we are.
Yes, thank you very much, ma. I think juggling is a matter of capacity, um, mentally as well as emotionally. So, as a parent, you need to know what your child's capacity is. And capacity grows as they grow, season by season. Let's take chores in the home. So if you give children chores in the home to do, what you would say to a 3-year-old to do is completely different from what you would ask a 15-year-old to do inside the house in terms of contributing to the family chores and things like that. So you're asking your 3-year-olds, oh, do you want to put your toys back into the box? And you're asking your 15-year-old to um, take out the laundry or something. You understand the capacity, and capacity, as I say, capacity is seasonal, so it's periodical. It's based on how they grow per level and stage of development. So if you know that the child is struggling to juggle things together, you know, you need to check what you as the parent know about their capacity. If this is something that you, the parent, is piling up for the child, then you're doing too much. Why are you piling it up for the child? As you say, Ma, we know you want to showcase how good we are with things. Is this about you? Who gets the praise, if you like, or who gets the accolades at the end of that? Is this you or is this your child? So, what is your child doing that benefits your child in that season of your child's life? You want to pile up this, you want to do this and do that and do this. So people look at you like, oh, you're fantastic. You're trendy. You know what exactly is going on. Your child does not live in their house and their child does not live in your house. So it's basically, if your child is juggling too much, two questions you need to ask. How much do I know about my child's capacity in this season? If you have a teenager who has just entered puberty, they're dealing with a lot. So many things are flying through their minds. They're working out identity, working out how to deal with friends in school, working out this and that. And then you're piling up so many things because you want to feel like the parent who is so on top of everything. That's selfish. Number one, you don't have your child's best interests at heart. So those two questions are, how much do I know about my child's capacity? Where are they now? You know, Where are they now in their lives? How much can they manage now, development wise, you know, and season wise? You have a child who's going through exams, and you're piling up so many things for them to do, or, you know, you want them to just get into so many things. What you want in that season, that what that child needs in that season, is be able to go through that exam period with retention, with their mind sane, without falling sick out of exhaustion and all of that. So it's so important to understand the capacity of the child, but it's also important to know, what am I looking for? Is this about me? What this child is doing, does it benefit them at the end, or does it benefit me? And it's really also important to space things out. If it's something that the child has to do, or a few things that the child has to do, what is the interval or the duration between one task or activity and the other? How paced and how spaced are they, so that the child does not feel burnout? But children can feel burnout just the way we adults can feel burnout. And in this day and age, that whole painting a picture and keeping up with the Joneses around what you do with your children, I think is just um childish, because at the end of the day, your child is not benefiting anything. They're not growing, they're not developing, they're not whole, and you are just you're showcasing something that doesn't last, because that child will push back at some point, say, I'm not doing this, this is just about you, at the end of the day, when they're old enough or they're wise enough to pick that up. So as I said, it's that capacity first. Juggling is all about capacity. Even we as adults, we take on so much, we bite off more than we can chew at certain points, because we are not self-aware enough to know what our capacity is. And then we are dropping the balls, we are losing sleep, we are not resting well, we're dealing with so many things in our minds. How much more a younger person living in your house, a child who is just stepping into some phases of their life and they're trying to work it out? So what we should be doing at that point to help a child who is juggling is taking ourselves out of the picture. This is not about me. How does this child, what do I need to help this child, with now? And a lot of role reframing is required. You're a mother, yes, but we take on so many roles through our calling and our phase as a mother. Sometimes you have to be a coach, sometimes you have to be a mentor, sometimes you have to push, sometimes you have to be someone who tells you, who's quite direct. We constantly are reframing our roles as parents. So when this child is at that point where they seem to be juggling so many things, help them. Quickly reframe your role and say, how do I help this child? It doesn't matter what anybody is saying out there. They are not going to help you look after a child that ends up being exhausted and sick and reclusive and not wanting to participate in anything because they're tired or they just want to be by themselves. So we need to reframe our roles and think about, how do I help my child? What can they physically, mentally, and emotionally handle at this period? It's a developmental stage. They will move out of that stage into another stage. And so when they move into the next stage, you're assessing capacity as well. You're
Mhm.
having conversations, with the children, and you're watching them. A lot of times when children have moved from one level of growth or capacity to another, they pick things up by themselves. You don't launch them into that phase. They go by themselves. Just like when you see a child that is, learning how to walk or has been crawling from 7 months to 9 months, when they feel like in themselves they're building capacity. Oh, I want to venture into walking. Then they now start to stand up and they start to move and hold things little by little. They are judging, they have a little bit of situation awareness, like, okay, I just want to move, you know but what you are doing at that point in time is, let me clear the way for them. Let me make sure that they're able to go through this developmental stage. They will leave that stage, and then the next thing, they'll start walking. Once they start walking, they'll start running. But they initiate the activity or the action for their next level, of capacity building, and then you just support them. if you want to pile on just because you want to say, oh, my child walked at 8 months and my child walked at 9 months, and you're constantly pulling the child is still trying to, the bones are not, strong enough. The child is still trying to pull himself and understand how does this thing really work. Have you seen children who are crawling and they crawl backwards? They are working this thing out, but at that point you have to walk. This person's child walked at 9 months. No, yours is to support that level of development. They will get, they will step into that capacity stage of capacity building by themselves when they feel that they're able. So you don't just pile up things, and it's not really about us.
Hmm. Thank you so much, sis. That
Yes.
child crawling backwards, God knows. In fact, there's a video I saw on Facebook. If you see all sorts of crawling,
I've seen that video.
have you
It's
seen that video?
hilarious.
I'm
It's
like,
hilarious.
in fact, and you be like, hey, calm down,
Yeah.
but it can be funny. It just tells you that the children are all unique
Yeah.
individuals, just like as adults. We're unique individuals. I never want anybody to compare me with anybody.
Yeah.
When they say you sing like this person, I'm like, oh, interesting. I'm not them. I'm different and I'm
Exactly.
unique.
Yeah.
So we should let our children go at their pace.
Yeah.
But how would you know their pace when you don't know their capacity?
Yes,
That
ma'am.
is what we tell you. When you know a child's capacity, you can say you can do better than that.
Mm,
Okay. But
mm,
if you don't know their capacity, you can't even steer them onto greater works. Thank you so
exactly.
much for that, Joy. Now, this question is for Vivian. We're rounding up in not too long. I'm glad that we've managed to cover so much within a short period of time. Let's have Vivian back. And I guess this is a question that we all can take part in this. So I'll bring Tony on board as well. How do we manage a situation when parents take sides with preferred children, making the other parent feel bad and ugly? Shall we hear your view about that, Vivian?
All right.
Please.
So now speaking about this, I understand that sometimes both parents are not on the same page, but ideally I feel like parenting should come with a united front. I mean, in the family, you must have a united front if you really want to drive and teach the values that you want to, teach your children and get the result that you need to get. So I feel like the mother and the father, that's the parents in this situation, should discuss and know how to address situations as they arise. And talking about favorites, I also do not think that parents should have favorite children or should make children feel like there's a favorite child, because that also breeds sibling rivalry. Behaviors should be addressed as they come. Mistakes should be addressed as they happen. And sometimes new things happen, and you may not have already developed a template for how to address such behavior. And one parent might be the one who has the solution at the time, and you decide to step in. And if, as the other parent, you feel like you did not like how the things were, how the situation was addressed, then it's a matter of communication, going back to the drawing table to say, this is what has happened. This is how we address it. These are the gaps in how we address it. If this should happen next time, how do we address this particular situation? And I don't feel like, in front of children, we should start having those conversations around, the disagreement or the gap, right? In that moment, in the front of the children, the right thing is to, just keep quiet and then move. When the child is out, move back to address it, recognize the gaps in how the behavior or the situation was addressed, and then adapt it for when that situation happens next time. And this is all things being equal. I've also seen situation where two parents have different styles of parenting,
Mm,
right? And really, in that situation, it's a journey that you have to go. If you are the parent who is saying, okay, let's do more of positive parenting, and the other parent is saying, I'm a traditional man or I'm a traditional woman and I cannot adopt this your style, then you need to be proactive in teaching and coming in when situations happen to wade in. Especially if you don't want maybe your children to be flogged or beaten in this instance, or shouted at, to kind of, you have to be proactive. And then while continuously educating your partner to see how things work. And if they are paying attention and seeing that your method works, and seeing as the children grow, the relationship that the children have with you because of your method, most times I have seen that they come on board and they start to learn again where all things are equal, where the family unit is a united front, really, because that's something we also have to have in mind. But really, parenting should have as a united front. You should have the values you want to teach. You should have how you want to discipline your children. You should have how you want to address behaviors as they come. And this is something that is up to the couple to really discuss, not in front of the children. You shouldn't be taking sides and arguing in front of your children, especially about their behaviors, because when children know that you don't have a united front, they will exploit it. They will know the parents who will agree, the parents who will say no to certain things, and then they will exploit it. You don't want that. You want your child to know that when I come to mommy with this thing, mommy will say no, and even if I go to daddy, daddy will still say no. They need to understand that you people have a united front when it comes to addressing behaviors and challenges.
Awesome. Thank you so much, sis. Tony, what do you have to say about that?
I would take a step back and say awareness, because for a lot of people they don't even, it's almost like a given. And I would say that you probably have a favorite child because that child is so much like you or so much unlike you, depending on what the attributes are. So, if for instance, I believe a very studious person. If none of my daughters likes reading like that, but if one of them did, then I probably would tend to, we would sit down, discuss books, and you would feel happier. Then you now have another child that, doesn't like books at all. It's almost like, I beg, stay one side. So I think parents need to be aware of, what exactly is it that draws me to this child, and what exactly is it that puts me off. Yeah, so for some people, it's the fact that that child reminds you so much of
Understand.
who you are, and it's abrasive, it rubs off on you and you react. So, like Dr. Vivian was saying, take a step back. You have to have these conversations with yourself. You have to have these conversations with your spouse. You have to know, because for the child who rubs you off the wrong way, you're going to have to sit down and discuss how you're going to, react or act towards that child. But if you're not even aware, you would just go with the flow. The child that you love is the child who does things the way you like. The child, and before you know it, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years have passed, and you have not modified your behavior. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Joy, do you have anything to say about that particular question?
Yes, ma. I completely agree with what Statoyi and Dr. Okoye have said, and I just want to add that when we step into the very dangerous area of favoritism, it's an age-old thing, because if you pick somebody like Jacob and see how that became generational
Mm,
in the Bible, and it was a very difficult thing. And it didn't start with him. It started with, Rebecca, and it went so far in the bloodline. But when we step into those dangerous waters, what we are giving the child who feels left out is a filter through which they view everything else that you do. But what we should be asking ourselves is, what is the love language of each of my children? And they will be different. Those love
mm,
languages will be completely different. And love for each child is different. Love for one of my own children is, you know, maybe doodling with her, or writing stories or something with her. The other one just wants to, mommy, can we bake together, or can we go out? Can we take a walk together? So for them, you're filling their love tank with what? Not with what you feel, you should be filling their love tank with what love looks like in their own eyes. And and I also am a stickler for same page parenting. It's something I'm always talking about. Same page parenting can save you a lot of things in your home, and can get you, along in, just as Dr. Koye was saying, with the values you're trying to embed, with the culture you're trying to set in your home, and all of that. So find out what their love language is for each one of them. And as Statoni said, you are the best person for your child. So even if you have four, you've got the capacity to manage and to show love to each one of those four children inside your home according to the way that they will appreciate it, and it will help them.
Thank you so very much. Now, this quick question for you, Toyin. When should you start to talk to a child about sex?
I think Sister Irene did a fantastic job on that in all the
She did.
categories. Was
Yeah. Do you think? Do you still want to say anything, or do you want us to just?
let me just add that basically, you know for each stage, like she said, there's appropriate language. I would say there's no time that is too early. Children these days, pick up so much so early because of all the influences around. But to start from, once they start communicating, using the right names for the body parts, you know something as little as that can be very, very good, very clear. You call the bottom, you call the anus, you call the vagina, you call the penis the penis. There's no shying away from it. It is what it is. So start that. By the time you start modifying and covering stuff, that's a recipe for disaster. So I would say, for the birds and bees talk, like you say, each child is different. If you could, especially because, like, so for instance, those of us who have generational gaps, when my first daughter was at that age, the influence of smartphones was not as prevalent as now. So you might find that, don't wait and say, okay, I talk to each of them at age 16 or at age 14 or at age 13. No, you look at the child, like we said, each child is different. Look at the child, look at the influences. And the most important thing, like Sister Irene said, is you want to be the source of information for that child. You want to be the first source. You want to be the true source of information. The North Star, as it were. As it were. They need to know that, my mom said this, because what they're going to hear outside is going to be very, very, very different. So please don't shy. There's nothing to it. We all came into this world, and we've also given birth. So there's, I don't know, some parents who I don't understand the shyness around it. So it needs to be said, but please, there's nothing to it. And there are materials, there are books, there are videos that you can put together and then generate questions. So please do not wait. It's important.
I normally, thank you, Tony. I ask married women who refuse to talk about sex. I said, we all know you are doing it. So who are you trying to deceive? And if you're not doing it, you should be raising prayer points. So I don't know why is it that people just don't want to talk about issues. Please talk to your children about sex. Talk, 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 talk. They're finding the information, they're getting the information, they're getting educated by several other people. And some of the things they're learning are not things that you approve of. So please speak to your children. In the UK, there are many words they use for vagina. There's so many, and it's acceptable. So I think it depends on where you are with it, talking about the vagina and things like that. When you are, doctor patients, yeah, but when you're talking amongst your friends, they can call it many words. When I got to the UK was when I realized that vagina has like, 30 different names. And each person that comes into my room to talk about their vagina could call it any one of those. So I had to increase capacity within my head to learn the different names of vagina. So, but the important thing is to make your children comfortable. Make your children comfortable about their body. That is so important. Make your children comfortable about their body. They will learn that from you. If you're always complaining about how fat, how this, how that, look, your body is your body. You live there. Okay? Complaining about your front garden being not maintained will not make it maintained. Do something about it if you're not happy about it. But don't just keep going on and on about it, because what you're doing, you're passing that to your child as well. I think, I don't know who spoke to us about fear, what we fear. I think it was Dr. Alugo, who was talking about that we cannot pass our fears on to our children, and then we make them lose confidence in themselves, and then they become praise for the people who want to take advantage of people who are not sure of themselves. So that is that. So Tony, last question for you. Let's talk about feeling of inadequacy in parenting, and what exactly is the definition of successful motherhood?
Okay.
Tony.
Yes, ma'am. Comparison is a thief of joy. That's when you say you are inadequate, you're saying that because you are comparing, you're comparing your state to somebody else's state. When you say you are inadequate, you're saying you are not enough. I've already stated that you're the best, you know uh best parent for your child, but you really need to sit down and reflect. What is it that is not enough about you? What exactly is inadequate? And I think too many times we focus on what we do not have, and we do not consider what we already have. That's why you feel inadequate. If you sit down and consider, I had this child in my womb for 9 months,
Mm,
I gave birth to this child. There might have been challenges and everything, but at the end of the day, you know, that child came out healthy, whole, well. If you look at school fees, just sit down and calculate how much you have paid. Let's assume your child is in primary six or in GS1 or in SS2. If you were actually going to count how much has gone through your hands to take care of that child, to feed, to clothe, if you think of all the times you have spent when the child was ill, taking care of that child, if you count your blessings as it were, you would realize how much energy, how much resources, how much strength, how much power, how much mental capacity has gone into raising that child. And you will clap for yourself because it's not beans. It is not beans. And some people have more than one, more than two, more than three, more than four. So, what exactly is the feeling of inadequacy about? I think a lot of times women, like I said, compare and sit down and, oh, woe betide me. No, begin to count the things you are doing well because there are many. And it's because you do not look at those things, it's because you do not enumerate them, it's because you don't sit down to reflect. That is why you're feeling inadequate. You really need to acknowledge the good that you are doing, the good that you have done. There are times, I'm sure many of us, all of us, at one time have looked at your children and said, maybe they said something or they did something or they achieved something. And you know that by no means, what exactly is it that you did that produced that outcome? God has gone and has, the seed that you have planted, God, has been watered, and God has brought, a lovely output. So that's on inadequacy. There really isn't any need to be. On being a successful mother, there are many, we've all realized that, or we all know that each of our children is different. Success for one person cannot be
mm,
in no wise measured as success for the other person. And for me, the playbook is God is the one who's giving us these children. So he's the one who has the marking scripts, as it were. So the very first thing is to go to God, for each of these children. I got out three women in the Bible. Mary treasured all the things that she was told about Jesus. She was central to Jesus's, a mission on earth. She treasured these things in her heart. She led him. She guided him. She knew his purpose. At the end of the day, did Mary fail or did she pass? There's a beautiful story of the King Josiah in the Bible. Josiah was 8 years old when he became king, and he reigned 31 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Jedidah, the daughter of Adiah of Bozkath. He did right in the sight of the Lord and walked in all the way of his father David, nor did he turn aside to the right or to the left. Why was his mom mentioned? She's the one that led him. For somebody to become a king at age 8, the
yeah.
mother was instrumental in ensuring he did not walk to the right or to the left. That's a pass mark. But God is the one who gave us. Then the last people I want to mention, it's Louis and Eunice. I remember your genuine faith, for you share the faith that first filled your grandmother Louis and your mother Eunice. And I know that same faith continues strong in you. Hey, these women left a good example. They were filled with faith, and that faith overflowed into their offspring, from grandmother to mother to son. And so when you say, okay, what's the definition of a successful mother? for each person is different. The person who raised Charles Wesley cannot use that same skill for another child. You cannot compare. And you have to go to God for the playbook. And it's based on that playbook. You will stand before God and you say, these are the children that you gave me. And this is the report card. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so very much for that. That was quite interesting. You're not in comparison, you're not in competition with anybody. And if you find anybody, any family, any relatives, any teachers who want to push your children in a negative way, you should be able to tell them, no, do not do that. These days, parents can do that. Other parents will be like, has your child done this? As your child, there are people that I make sure that I don't relate with them anymore because you don't know the journey I'm traveling, but you're trying to assess whether I've reached there or not. It is wrong. I do not allow anybody to put me under undue stress. I know of a few colleagues of mine several years ago. Once they've maybe they've written an exam, they've done a course, they'll be I've just done this, I've just done that. And you're like, look, my life is different from you. I mean, this is all that you do. Me, I've got several things I do with my life that are very meaningful to me. And and I have to say, so I'm not chasing what you're chasing. If we're not traveling on the same journey to the same destination, why are you comparing our arrival time? So you too, it can happen. Parents, some other parents will make you feel like you are incompetent. Your child has not done this at this age. I've just been told that the deadline for doing it has passed like 16 years ago. That is fine. My child has got a timing. That was, when Joe was talking about knowing your child's capacity, it doesn't put you under pressure. Everybody will eat something. They say I should not be talking. I will still talking. Everybody will chop breakfast. Whether you wake up at 6 a.m. or you wake up at 11 p.m., the first food you eat for that day is still breakfast. So please don't let anybody make you feel giz and be feeling as though you're good for nothing because their children have achieved this. My child has done this exam, done that exam, gone to this place, gone to that place, and you just be like, is this why is my life like this? No. Ask God about your children. I've always led you. Pray that God will introduce your children to you. If you know that your child is supposed to get to a bus stop at 3:45 p.m., the person that arrived at 2 came too early for your child. And it's as simple as that. God bless you. Now, last question for Joy.
Yes, ma'am.
Joy.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Tony. So, Joy, can you tell us what are the best tips for when your normal schedule is disrupted by many things? You mentioned something earlier on about having visitors. I like the fact that when visitors come to the house, you tell them, hey, please, can the TV go off? It's just fantastic.
Yeah.
Some people don't know their boundaries though when they come into your house. But
Yeah.
take me, I am a professor in that. I tell you before you come into my house is still a barrack. There are rules that apply. Once you are there, if you want to remain welcome, you keep to the rules.
Yeah.
And that was just brilliant because some people just don't know. They will just come and bring their own and disrupt what you have used 17 years to build. And then you have to start from scratch again.
Yeah.
So, what are the best tips for when normal schedule is disrupted by external factors, i.e., guests in the family, child is sick, school holidays? How
Yes,
do we
ma'am.
maintain it? Otherwise, every time school resumes, you have to to start from scratch.
Honestly, I remember something that Statoin was saying about courage, especially when it comes to guests. So, when you have guests, coming into the family, how long? 1 day, 2 days, it's okay. But if you have guests who are staying longer, they've got to learn how things work in your
In
family.
that,
And it takes courage because if you're talking about mother-in-laws and mothers and sister-in-laws and all of that, it takes courage to say, you're not going to be here forever. This is what works in this house. And, in the nicest way possible to say it to them. And they should fall in line with that. Because when that routine that you have painstakingly built goes out of the window, just like that, over a 3-month period, oh my goodness, we know how long it will take us to get back there. Then, everything is topsy-turvy. If it's a sick child, by the grace of God, that episode should not be prolonged. What that child needs at that time is care. You've got a huge duty of care to that child as the mother to look after the child and be there for the child until that period goes. And then you now start to build back gently. A child who has just, come out of maybe a tummy bug that goes around the UK sometimes, who needs some time to recuperate, has not been eating, and you're like, okay, right, you're back to school tomorrow. Back to where? Calm down and let the child start, heal, because you'll be back to that same position again because you're trying to build something. So if it's school holidays, sometimes parents tend to loosen their grip on school holidays, especially maybe if it's the long ones, those 1 month, 6 week, 8 week type of school holidays. During those periods, you can loosen it a little bit. Not that you throw everything completely out of the window. For example, during holidays in my house, study time slightly increases because we have a schedule during school holidays. You're not just going to be playing and chatting about completely during the school holidays. When school is in session, if we're able to work maybe 2 hours, so maybe 1 hour in the morning before you go to school, you do some music or whatever, and in the evening you do your homework and you finish, that's fine because you've been at school for 8 hours. But during the holidays, work in some time, for them. Bedtime, if you want to keep bedtime, your children and your home, if you want to keep bedtime the way it is and say, okay, we're still going to bed at 7:30. If you have older children, they might stay a little bit, longer up. But when it is getting to like 2 weeks before school resumes, that's in the long holidays, please try to start to bring things back to where they were. Try to start to bring things back. Don't start, school is resuming on Monday and you're trying to get back to routine on Friday, even that we're not going to get there. So start to pace yourself. Start to pace yourself. And what I'll say really about guests coming into the house, or maybe family members coming into the house during the holidays, is be courageous enough to make what works in your house clear to everybody. If you've got support network in terms of parents, when my mom is around, my mom is fantastic with the children. She understands the routines. She would always ask me and say, okay, what are they doing at this time? And the children are bold enough to go to grandma and say, no, grandma, I need to be doing this now. And she respects that because that's what happens within the home, So just be courageous enough to manage that. Why? Because your productivity depends on it. Mama was talking about when her son goes to bed at 7:30, then she pulls out the snacks, and they start to gist and talk for their marriage and their relationship. That's productivity. He's gone to bed, and they are being productive, building their own relationship. And these are all the areas of our lives that, as parents or mothers, we need to we need to be productive depending on what works for you. So please, courage is number one when we have guests in the house. When a child is ill, give that child all the care. Allow them to recuperate and come back to the place where that they're able to take that routine again as well. And if it is bedtime routines, know what works in terms of holidays. If you have only a 1 week half term, I would usually keep 1 week half term sleep bedtime to the way it was before the half term. If we're having 8 weeks or 6 weeks for summer holidays, I can relax it a little bit for the older ones. I was saying before, even during the summer holidays, my son will still nod off at 8 o'clock, even though he tries his best to want to be like the older ones. His body clock is already, wired that way. So that's what I would say, ma.
Thank you so much, sis. What you just mentioned that reminded me several years ago when my son decided that he wasn't going to sleep. So he went to his bedroom and he started coughing. And he continued coughing until my husband went in there and he said to him, "That's fine. You don't want to sleep? That's all right. Please come out." Brought him back into the lounge and told him, "Please stand there until you're ready to sleep." The boy, he was right. You want to stay, you want to see what happens in this house at 11 p.m. We will allow you the opportunity. I felt so bad, but I knew I couldn't say anything about that incident because my dear sisters, he needed to see. He was curious. He wanted to come out of his room. He just invented this cough. And I mean, I'm a doctor, for goodness sake. I know when somebody has a proper cough. He coughed, coughed, coughed until we got him out of bed. He was begging, "Please, I want to go." My husband said, "No, 11 p.m. You will see what happens." On that note, Dr. Okoye, can you please give us a parting word?
All right. So my parting word would be that we as parents, like I said, parenting is really built on the backdrop of really relationship, and parenting requires a great deal of reflection, self-awareness. So we are as parents would want to always think about how we interact and show up to the relationship that we have with our children. And we want to think about it beyond what is happening at the moment and think about how our responses, our words, our actions are coming together to shape who our children are becoming. Because at the end of the day, that little home, that home, that child in your lounge, you know, that home is a small world where you're practicing how your child is gonna act and engage in the bigger world. So you want to have that at the back of your mind to say what we're doing in this home, how is it equipping our child to function in the real world that is the home? And I also want to say that we shouldn't allow fear, because we're in the era of social media. There's a lot going on there that if you don't filter what you see, it's gonna impact the way that you show up in your relationship. You're gonna overshield your children because of fear. Don't allow fear to drive your choices in parenting. Evil will always be in the world. There would always be evil in the world. And your duty as a parent is not to shield your children, is to equip them to recognize evil, to navigate through the evil, and then to be a shining light in a dark world. So don't allow fear. Whenever things go viral, I always tell parents, things go viral, don't panic. That should be a learning point for you. That should be telling you what to do, what to equip your children on. Don't allow fear to cripple you, and also hold on to God. He's the one that has given us the children, but just custodians. So at the end of the day, all wisdom comes from God. When you feel stuck, cry back to Him, and He's the master strategist. He will always, always come through for us.
Amen. Thank you so much, Dr. Koye. Thank you so much for honoring us with your presence and your knowledge today. It's been amazing, amazing having you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Final word from Joy, please.
Thank you very much, Ma. Um, I will not only just echo what Dr. Koya said, but I would add consistency to it. That's what takes us really, really far. We ch- Children grow up too quickly. Time passes too quickly. It passes really quickly. Mama, I'm sure you remember, when the kids were 2 and 3, and now the time that has passed between the year,
Yeah.
like, how did we get here? You know, the days seem to um, run quicker, but those years, the years that we have in our home, we need to cherish those moments and build
Mm.
in. Moments become memories.
Ah,
Moments become memories, and it's so, so important for us. Let's just be consistent. And the Holy Spirit is not incapacitated to help us. He has all the strength, all
yeah.
the wisdom, all the knowledge that we need for every single child, and nothing takes him by surprise. So if you are surprised by what you're experiencing with a teenage child, God is not surprised. Go there. He's got exactly what he needs, what you need for that child, and for you to help that child. Thank you so much, Ma.
God bless you. Thank you so much. So we'll let Dr. Koye go. And Joy, thank you. You've been amazing as always. These words that you've spoken, I'm sure mothers will be quoting this and remembering this for a long time. Be
Ma.
consistent. Be consistent. That is how things become how they become. And you see, this last words you said there, I was sharing yesterday afternoon, my daughter came into the room and I was looking through my laptop and I was looking at Google Photos.
Mm,
And as she came into the room, I said, "Go, come here. I need to show you some memories." And then we went far back, many years. And I was asking, I said, "Do you recognize this place?" And she was like, "Yeah, yeah, I do, I do, I do. I remember that place. I remember, all the things that we've done, all those pictures, all those videos. We're just laughing at them
yeah,
now. They're beautiful. Your
yeah,
child is in your house for a short while,
yeah,
a very short time. Make it memorable for them. Make them enjoy childhood. I mean, I enjoyed my childhood. We did silly things, but I enjoyed my childhood. The memories I have are amazing memories.
Mm.
So remember, your children are with you for a short while. God created an individual to fulfill a peculiar role on earth and allowed them to stay in your house for a
Yeah.
while. Don't damage them.
Amen.
Please, I beg you. Remember to love them. When
Mm.
you give a child love, they will give that love back to you.
Mm.
They will remember the times when they did things wrong and how you spoke to them. I said yesterday about the fact that people will forget you, but they will never forget how you made them feel. Your child is not just a small you, that is a whole individual living under your roof. Please use the time well so that in old age, when they find alternatives to you, they will not abandon you. I'm always leading mothers to pray that your children will be merciful on you in your old age. Give them reasons to be merciful. Some parents are nasty.
Mm.
Please don't be nasty to your children. We've learned so much today. Thank you, Joy, for
Thank
joining
you.
us. We are so grateful. I am sure we'll be calling on you sometime soon. Thank you so
Thank you
much,
very
lady.
much, Ma. I'm so grateful.
Sorry to cut Joy off. She was still talking there, and I didn't realize. I think my finger was very fast. Now, Toyi, we're here. We've got tomorrow evening. Thank you so much, ladies, for staying with us. You really tried. I mean, most people have stayed. I think we kind of dropped by 4, by 5, and then they came back, and it's been amazing. Having, I hope it's been worthwhile for all the ladies who have joined us this evening. I really hope you've learned something. Tomorrow evening, let me tell you what's gonna happen. Tomorrow, Tony and I will be back again. Tomorrow evening, we're having Pastor Wumi Oyetuga. I think is yes, Pastor Wumi will be coming tomorrow evening, and she'll be talking about your child and God. Your child and God, very crucial. And tomorrow I'll be leading you to pray as well. Antonio will be sharing with us whatever it is that God lays on our heart. And to round up the meeting for us tomorrow evening is my Auntie Lola Oshinowo. She's a grandmother. She's a woman so devoted to God. I met Auntie Lola in 2012, and I've just followed that woman all the way. She's a woman who takes, look, you, I don't let me say anything. You will hear testimonies from her tomorrow. There was one, I was on the phone for about 2 hours, and my husband was like, what on earth is this? When you're talking about a woman, warring over the destiny of our children, and Lola will be sharing some real-time stories with us tomorrow. So please come promptly at 7 p.m. so that we can finish on time, because there's a lot that we have to do. Thank you so much, ladies. Please don't forget to share this video. A lot of women are just sitting there. They need the information here. They may not know that precious jewels. They may know that precious jewels and not even be aware that this has happened this weekend. When you share the video, then they can join in. And then I'm going to share the link for tomorrow's meeting, tomorrow's session. Please pass it on, share on your wall, so that when we come on live, you can just focus on the screen straight and you will not be bothered so much. God bless you, ladies. Thank you for joining us this evening. We will see you tomorrow. Have a good night. Thank you, Toyin.
Thanks.
Have a
Thank you,
good night.
ma'am. Bye.
Have a good night, everyone. See you tomorrow. And remember, you are an amazing parent. God bless you.
Amen. Bye.
Good night. See you tomorrow. Bye, everyone. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to pass the video on. Have a good night. Thank you for joining us.